Today's episode is brought to you by elitefts.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of Elite FTS for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it. Now, onto the show.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. Okay, and we are live with episode 113 of Table Talk. Before I get started introducing our guests, I want to thank Marek Health for sponsoring season 3, or the comeback of Table Talk. Marek Health is a premium health care platform. So the way to explain this, and I did kind of a medium job last time I did the podcast, is they have two different platforms. They optimize health is basically what they're doing. I'm going to try to explain this in my own words instead of going off of the script here. So we all know the importance of getting your blood work done regularly. I've got my blood work done on a quarterly basis for probably the last decade. So I kind of know what markers I need to look at and what changes to make from there. What Marek offers is they offer that same type of service in two different routes. The one route is kind of doing the way that I would do it, where you go to their site, you order the labs, your first order, you get a 10% discount for those labs, and you just pick whatever labs that you want, and then you get the lab results. Most of us kind of know how that works because there's other online networks that do the same thing. Their Marek is cheaper, for one thing. The other part of this is that they have a second track. The second track is they'll have a provider or healthcare provider. And I want to avoid saying doctors because it may be a doctor, it may be a nurse practitioner. Who they look for to be able to correspond with you are people who know hormone optimization. Now that's not just TRT, it could be anything from vitamin D to any other markers that are off. So the second track is you get your blood work, or you contact the healthcare provider. They'll help you determine what blood work that you should get done. You get that blood work done, then you'll speak with that provider, and then they'll be able to recommend what medications or supplements and prescribe them if needed, for that. So the two tracks that they have are actually freaking awesome if you think about it. So I want to thank Marek Health. The website is this is where I'm going to screw it up, MarekHealth.com. It's going to be in the description, and the discount code is Table Talk. Again, you'll get 10% off that first order. I want to thank them again because they reached out to us in regard to sponsoring the podcast to get it started, which allowed us to start it probably 2 months earlier than what I thought we were going to be able to start it. Now, with that being said, and thanks are out there, our guest today is, when I was putting together season 3 of Table Talk, there's two podcasts that we just trained, so I'm still a little bit of a brain fog, right? So there were two that I wanted to do that were really important for me to get done. One of them was sitting down with John's training partners, and last night when I was just doing quick math and texting you guys, there's close to 3,000, probably more, because you trained with him.
Training sessions.
And I forgot all about the years that he was at Westside. So 3,000 training sessions that we trained with John, not with, I think there are a couple maybe with you, but at different time periods, right? So people will see the training sessions that were on Mountain Dog YouTube and his channel and so forth. And those are all awesome. The education's awesome. But I wanted to meet with you guys and talk to you guys about what it was really like to train with him. There was nothing in those videos that was bullcrap. It's all 100% legit, and a lot of that was John. But there's more to training than just that one training session that you see that might happen every couple of weeks that ends up on YouTube. I mean, I'm speaking with Darryl and Bret, and we were training with him sometimes twice a week, 4 times a week, years on end, so we know John, we know his training methods probably better than anybody except himself because we were there.
Yeah.
A lot of other people will read things.
Yeah. I mean, I think between all of us, right, we've got it covered going back to were you
90s.
Were you for when you trained with him though? I go all the way back to about 2010. You know, time is like, you know, it's hard to keep track of that. So I say 2010, but
I think 2005.
So so we go way back that.
Yeah. So there's 5 years there consistently, and then there was the time at Westside, which I really don't. I trained with him, but it was different, you know, because he was kind of the outsider, you know, being the bodybuilder in the gym. But there were certain things that he did that impressed me back then. But where I built a better relationship with him would have been in that 2004, 2000. Like yourself, I get kind of foggy on the years. And then you were just the last.
Probably more consistently like the last two years. I mean, the first time I trained with him, I was like 15. And it was over at Lifetime, too, over there. Yeah. So I got to have, like, a little hint of it. But at that time, I wasn't necessarily, like, this is what I'm doing kind of thing. My dad just kind of brought me over there to train with him one time. And so we did. I was like, this is really cool. But I think it was the 2016 Arnold Classic when we all went out there and saw him compete, where I was like, I remember leaving. I was like, Dad, this is what I want to do. So I just remember seeing him up there. I was like, this is wild. And so from there on in, I think is when he's helped me the most. But
and for me personally, it's taken a while. You know, to be able to want to sit down and even do this. I mean, we were pole bearers, and so he was more than just the training partner to us. So it was weird trying to talk about like the hardcore training sessions and all the other kind of stuff. And I don't even know how well it's going to go now, to be completely honest with you guys. But
to be honest, I feel like this is almost going to be like a therapy with Dave Tate. You know, talking all about John, because you know, when you first asked, just all last night, you know, my mind's just racing through, you're just running through all the years of all the memories and everything that happened. And so, to be honest, I think it'll be really good for me, and I would assume everybody else, just to sit down and talk about it, because things like that, like, it's been 9 months now, but it feels like 9 days.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, any time before, it was hard to just say anything. I didn't know I had me do something for Mountain John's pay site. You know, that was hard. But there was one thing I wanted out there before everything else. And so once that was hard, and that had nothing to do with the training, but it was something that I thought had to be put out there, is John the man, you know, because everybody sees him as, you know, John in the gym and so forth. But we'll see how it goes. You know, we got a lot of questions, so we'll just break the ice here, and we'll just talk about our training session that we just did.
Okay.
You know, so as we set this up, you know, one of you emailed or texted me and said, hey, you know, can we train beforehand?
Yeah, that was definitely.
And I'm like, okay.
I come here, I got to train.
Definitely I'm going to let him train here. Then the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, do I want to train with him or not? And because I trained Wednesday night. It's a squat night. And I'm like, well, I think I do. And so and it was a weird thing. I'm kind of like going back. Do I want to do this bodybuilding crap again? You know, and after doing it, you know, I miss a lot. I miss some of it. You know, I really do. Because the funny thing was, when you told me that you were going to be training lats, I do like one exercise for lats a week, which is chest supported rows. All my other pulling stuff, deadlift stuff, squat stuff, is taking care of that. So I'm like, oh man, this is going to suck, because I'm going to be terrible.
Yeah, you just did a year's worth of lat training.
I know. Then I'm thinking, well, what if I tear something just doing pull downs, you know? And but then the more I thought about it, and we started going back and forth a little bit about, let's do some of John's favorite stuff. And I said, this might be kind of cool to do. Maybe in a way closure, maybe not. You know, I don't think I really found what I was looking for with that. But it was a really good time training and doing that stuff again, because I don't do that. I do the other stuff. So now I'm like, to be honest, I'm a little bit confused, like how I want to train. Like I definitely want to do it again, you know, because that was a good time. And it's a faster pace than what I'm used to. And that,
we were moving.
The funny thing is, you guys are trying to slow me down. I'm like, no, this isn't what I'm used to when I was doing this with John. We just go. And then you build in exercises, you know, like the straight arm pullover. The movement is the rest. You know, so you just go to an easier movement, and then that gives you a little bit more rest, and you get back into the harder stuff. So what would you guys think when we start going back and forth about training wise?
I mean, I could definitely see where you and John think alike on a lot of things too. It was kind of like training with him again, which was very nice, honestly, because just certain movements, like I don't even know what we would call. I mean, it was a chest supported row of some sort, but dragging it again. I mean, I haven't done little things like that you almost forget to do. Like how you said, like everyone's traps when they're doing like a chest supported. You don't always have somebody there to tell you that that's what you're doing, and then you're lacking in this point. It might not even be like a weak muscle, but you're just not training it correctly. So doing those things where you had to basically pull it against the rack first and then pull it up, I haven't done anything like that in a long time, so that felt really, really nice.
One thing that helped a lot was, I think you sent the text that said that Darryl had a show.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden my mind was like, okay, now I know what we can do.
Now you got some
Now
direction.
it makes sense because it's just not three guys training together, two are washed up meatheads. It's like, now I got it, because that gives focus to what the training would be. So that helped a lot, because okay, now then that's why I asked you when you came in, what are you doing? What program are you doing? How many sets are you doing? Because I don't want to take you off plan, but try to find those little intricacies. I don't know how to say that word very well in there. What about yourself? I mean, how have you, actually I should ask, how have you been training in the past year? Because
basically like that, like I go into the gym and it's like, I'm still training as if John was there. It's it's all his exact style of, and it's kind of like that, where it's like I'm doing all these movements that just remind me of John. It's like I'll, in my head I'll pick, or I'll remember a workout, or like on his channel we just made a video about leg training, and then it's like, oh, okay, now I remember when we would do back and we would do this exercise, so I'm gonna incorporate that into the next workout. To me, it's just bringing back all these memories of training with him. You brought up the drag curl. Well, John, it's unbelievable the number of, like he would talk about the tools in the toolbox that he had. His creativity, where there were so many options as far as tools of what to do and what exercises, that he would go in phases. And so it was like the 2014 John back training was completely different than 2010 or 2018. And so there's it's been, like I said, it's been 9 months in my training. It's just like I can just keep coming up with new reminders of how I used to train with John. And so I really just everything I do, because as we said, like I go back to like 2010, right? And so my entire way of training is based on John. Everything. Like before training with John, I probably like everybody, I was kind of like, all right, Flex Magazine told me to do this Dorian Yates style training, and so I would do that for a while, and then you'd try something else. But ever since training with John, everything he did just made sense to me. Because for me, I'm not a competitive bodybuilder. For me, it's just my idea of a good time, right? So my goal isn't to do this show next week. It's to be 67 years old and still doing this. And a lot of what he did was based on longevity and staying injury free. And so all of his training principles, if you will, everything just makes sense to me. So really, when it comes to my training, I just keep doing kind of what we did.
His
I'm not sure if that answers the question.
No, it does.
I was just rolling.
Yeah, no, I like when you're talking about his toolbox, because he didn't just have a toolbox. He had like one of those mechanics toolbox, like the guy over there,
The expensive one.
A big ass one, with all different things in there, but then knowing what to pull out at what time, that was the art, behind the way that he trained.
It makes me think, so you mentioned you went to Lifetime and trained with him. Well, you think of John, and there's all these videos of you and him here just destroying it. Well, he spent, 15 years or something like that at the Lifetime Fitness Center, and he was able to, create his physique at this fitness center where everybody thinks you've got to be at this crazy hardcore gym. Well, his creativity, if you will, was like on full display with all of these machines that the fitness center had. And granted, back then they had some pretty good equipment, but like any fitness center,
it was still a fitness center.
It's a fitness center. And so every 2 years, it's like, well, there's these great equipment. Well, let's get rid of that and bring in the new thing so it's shiny and it looks good to the next potential customer. So it's like, okay, then John's like, I got to reevaluate and come up with a new tool to say, how can I use this new machine they brought in, because they just took out my favorite hack squat.
It's funny that you say he's in phases, or like the 2010 John Meadows not the same. I almost wonder like what he would be doing now, because I felt like he was never stuck to one thing, and I feel like people that trained with him or was coached by him, there was never anything I felt like he was fixated like this is the only way that works. If there's a better way to do something, he would do it. So
see, you guys were training with John after I.
Yeah.
So when I was training with him, he was in pursuit of the pro card, right?
I got a story about that.
Yeah, so that was the main drive, was that. So, I mean, we do a workout here and there after he retired, but it was different. Yeah. To me, it was a different John. He was evolving into being more of a coach than being the competitor, where the hunger of the competitor was kind of what I was used to, where that's where it was a weird dynamic, because when I was training with him, I wasn't the competitor. I just kind of was waiting for the challenge sets and stuff.
The fun stuff.
Yeah. So when he stopped coming out to train, because there was no reason at that point, because it is a distance to be able to come out here and train as frequently as he was, I kind of drifted back into my conjugate style and kind of what I love with the training with that. And then he more evolved into what you guys were training with him with. Yeah. But there was a time when you mentioned the Lifetime Fitness Center, this is funny, man.
There was one time, I know where you're going,
There was one time, man, because he said, look, why don't you come out and train with me? And I'm like, all right, that's cool, man. Like, where is it? And he's like, it's Lifetime Fitness. And immediately I'm like,
I was there. I saw you with the hood up, going at it.
I'm like, man, I don't want to do this, man. And then I remember it was in Easton, and I got a parking garage and all this kind of stuff. And you pay like $25 for a day or whatever. Whatever it was. But it smelled like chlorine, And I'm like, this is everything.
Yeah, the whole pool when you walk in from the
And John, and the thing was, John, I'm like hating everything about this, right? He loved it. He's like, man, they got this restaurant. They watch my kids. They got daycare. The equipment's really good. So he had this way of just, here I'm like, this is the last place I would rather just quit.
It was all right there. He had a great restaurant across the street he loved. Trader Joe's was across the street. Yeah. Like, it was perfect for him.
Yeah, and he's like, and I'm like, what's up with this guy? I'm like, it's like we just, when my place was like a shithole, but it was hardcore. And like, this is like the complete opposite. And then we're training and doing this other stuff. And what I always joke about with that is we supersetted leg presses with leg presses. There were different leg press machines. Right. And they were both drop sets. Yeah. Like one of them was an upset, the other was a drop set. And he's like, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to do, we're going to superset leg press with leg press. And I'm like, what? How do you do this? Because I got one leg press. It's like, every gym I've been in has like one leg press. I'm like, how do you do supersets of leg presses with leg presses? So then we did that. And then he loved this stupid machine where you lay flat on your back. It's like a horizontal leg press. Was it the where it had a weight stack? Yeah. It's at the far corner of the gym. Yes. So here's so that's that machine was quickly, and I don't know what you guys did on it, but we quickly named that the death machine. So like I was talking, like at some point that machine was rotated in, and it's nothing special. I had to look, and it's like a techno gym, selectorized leg press machine. It's absolutely nothing special, but it was always like the last exercise of leg day, and what you would do is you'd go in there, and the first set's 20 reps, right? A heavy set of 20 reps. Okay, that's whatever. That's hard. And then the next set is 15 regular reps, but then 5, what's the word? Rest pause. Yeah. You would stop, dead stop. You dead stop. So you're doing 15 normal, 5 dead stop reps. Then the next set is 10 regular reps, 10 dead stops, and then 5 regular reps, 15 dead stops, and then the last one is 15 dead stops on that machine. But the way it was, somehow that stupid machine felt so good, and since it's that selectorized, you're completely safe to go to failure and beyond, and if somebody needs to, they can assist you. But we quickly named the damn thing the death machine, because after you were done, you were just a dead body laying on the ground in the corner. But that was like his creativity, right, on display there. So I hated the thing, and it wasn't for the same reason, just because I did it, right? I did the same thing that you're talking about, but I just could not get any mental drive into it. I couldn't get over the fact, like, this is what I would do if I'm on vacation somewhere.
And when you're on it,
and there's nothing else. Like a cruise ship would have this.
Yeah, that's what you got to do.
The location of the machine, you were looking directly in, and they could be doing like Jane Fonda workout videos through the window.
It's like whatever. I'm like trying, and like I can't get into this, man. I'm like, I'll do it. I'm doing the rest pause and all that, but I'm not enjoying. It's just like, this is horrible, And then afterwards, I'm trying to figure out, like, how can I tell him I never want to come back?
You never did. You did. It was
and I didn't. I'm like, no, I got something. I got to work. I got something else.
Yeah. Would the internet believe that Dave Tate went to work out at Lifetime Fitness?
No, it was. Now the leg press. I mean, there were things that you made work, right? I mean, dumbbell stiff leg deadlifts and leg presses. And, I mean, certain things are what they are.
Definitely different from your normal atmosphere.
Oh, for me,
For you,
I mean, I grew up in every place I've ever trained is the opposite of that. And so, I mean, like, the only time I would use stuff like that would be on a cruise ship. I mean, it was like, because there's nothing else, And then on the, there you're like, well, I have to make this work. So I guess that was kind of his mentality as well. This is here. I have to make it work because that's what I have, and there's no other choice. And, well, he had other choices, but the convenience outweighed that factor because the kids were small.
And to be fair, some of that equipment was really good around 2010, but they slowly got rid of, like, one of our favorite hack squats of all time was the flex machine hack squat. Well, I don't know what year they finally got rid of, and they didn't even bring in a new hack, so they just phased out the hack squat.
Well, the other cool thing about that was they loved John.
Yeah, he kind of ran the gym for a while where he could do anything, and at one point they dragged chains in there. Like, can you imagine today somebody dragging, I don't know, 8-10 chains into LA Fitness? Like,
but that's him and his personality. I mean, how many times have you heard, bodybuilders or powerlifters or people thrown out of commercial gyms, like for whatever reason, and he didn't get thrown out for lifting too much weight, being too strong, or training too hard, because he did all those things. They loved him, because his personality and how he treated people and all the other kind of stuff.
He was training the trainers a little bit too for a while. So it was like, he was good with the people you needed to be in good with the manager and some of the head trainers or whatever, so that he could kind of do his thing, and nobody really complained, or if they did, the head trainer was just like, get out of here.
Exactly. And then from there, I don't know where he went from there. I think it was it American Barbell?
Yeah,
or
was that directly after Lifetime?
Yeah, like once he moved to Pickerington, so I think that was that like 17 or 18? Somewhere around there, whenever he moved, because he used to live real close to Easton, like we were saying, and there was the convenience. And then when he moved towards Pickerington,
then he went to Barbell.
Yeah, he went to American Barbell, and I think there was a little bit of fifth phase where he kind of was jumping around to, I can't think of the name of it, but the gym downtown Columbus. When the Arnold Classic, the Arnold Classic is going, like, he was going on there for a little while.
It was a World Gym for a while, right? And then they changed it. Metro.
I think it's called like the Pros Gym.
Pros Gym.
Okay.
Multiple names.
I feel like every time when the Arnold's going on, all the pros will come in and go there.
It's like the old bank or something like that.
But I've never even trained there.
Now when he was coming into Westside, he was training a little bit in the World Gym, which was up in Westerville, but also the one that was out east. So he kind of was on this. When Mike Francois, however it's pronounced, when he was coming, it's the same kind of thing where they would come in, they would do the stuff at Westside, then they go do their accessories at whatever those other gyms were.
Oh, they would go to a different gym afterward and do their accessory stuff.
Or and a lot of, I think back then double splits were way more popular. I don't know if anybody even does them anymore, but they were more popular. So they do the big heavy compound stuff, and then they would go do the other stuff.
I remember him talking, like, he would do the speed work, and then maybe there was one other thing for like squatting, and then he would immediately get in the car and he's driving, like you're saying, driving to World Gym, and then he would like press hack squat, like, so he would talk about.
He did go to Metro Fitness in Worthington. I think it used to be Worlds for a little while, right?
Yeah. And he still ended up squatting 800 pounds because he still did a meet.
Yeah, he did one meet, and he would always talk about it, and I think he wished he would have done a second one, because if I remember right, it was like when he went to squat, the first try, like he would say the weight was too light, and so he just went he went up too fast with it, and I don't know enough about, but it was no good. And so then the second attempt I think was like the same weight again, so that was too light. And then Louis wouldn't let him take a big enough jump. So I don't remember.
He could have probably squatted,
So the way I remember it was always like I know I could have done at least another 100.
He could have done at least 50, 60 more, without a doubt. Yeah. But he was strong enough. All the indicators in the gym put him there, and the meat was that. And he didn't know. I mean, he wasn't a power lifter, so he didn't know. I think the first one was a little high, but he was hard to judge too because his legs were so freaking big.
Yeah, he was bottom.
Yeah, and they're trying to look at the crease of the hip, and you can't do that on a guy that's quads are like 8 inches sticking up in the air.
It doesn't. I feel like it's going to be tough for it to look like it's going low enough anyway. Unless you're really digging it like deep into the.
Yeah, so what he did is he had to repeat the opener, which was a freaking joke, which he should have just went up. But it's all in hindsight, and it wasn't his sport anyhow. Yeah. At the time, I was glad he competed, right? Because when you're in a group that all you do is power lift, you're like, who is this guy? What's he doing? Yeah. But then when he said he was going to compete, it's like, oh, okay. It's a little more respect, especially with the mindset of the guys I was training with at the time. So that earned a lot of respect. Just the fact that that's what he was going to do. He wasn't just going to come in, do the bodybuilding stuff and then be gone in 9 months or whatever it was going to be. Yeah. But looking back, it's like, that was kind of stupid, man. I didn't know how good of a bodybuilder he was back then. I didn't know what rank, he was trying for his pro card at that point in time too.
Yeah, he spent like 20 years at the national level trying to obtain his pro card. Yes. I think he competed like 16 times before he got it. And I don't know if we want to get into how close, talking about the pro card, but like that was when he kept getting second, right? Yep. It was like a 3-year time period where he got second, like 2 competitions 1 year, second again the next year, second again the next year, and then would it be 2015?
I'm not sure, but he was close to it before he got sick, right? With his whatever it was, colitis, whatever it was. So he was close then. Yeah, so I think he had a couple of shots before that. So then he had that, which disrupted, a lot.
It was like 1990. I'm going to get it wrong, but like 1996 or 99, he got like 5th.
Yes.
And so he thought, all right, I'm right there.
Yeah. So he was in the magazines. He had the momentum. Yeah. And it was getting there, and then boom, this knocks him down. Yeah. Then he came back from that. Then I hooked up with him because it was on my ass end of powerlifting. Actually, powerlifting was over, and he was writing stuff for T Nation, and I was in flux. I mean, I really didn't know what I was going to do. It's like, well, I can't power lift. That's not an option. Well, yeah. I got to do something. And I still can't wrap my head around training for health or longevity. I just don't understand it. It's just me. I can't.
Isn't that like exercising, right? Which is, there's just.
Once you have the mentality that you have, though, it's kind of hard to just throw it out.
Yeah.
Well, I don't understand training for something like do this so 10 years from now you'll be this. Yeah. Where not just John, but many people I've been very close to throughout my life have passed too soon. Yeah. I'm like, no, I want to train for now.
Yeah. Because I don't.
Next month isn't guaranteed. Yeah. So when people talk about longevity, I'm like, that has zero interest for me. Yeah. Zero. Now, I'm not an idiot. What I understand. I'm not going to do insanely stupid shit. But at the same time, I'm not going to put, everything that I really love to do completely on a back burner for the hopes that I'm going to be around in 3, 5, 10, 20 years. I don't understand that. Other people should. I just am not wired that way. Yeah. So I was in that really weird spot, like, well, what the hell am I going to do? Because I tried some of the bodybuilding stuff and it bored the shit out of me. Yeah. Like, I can't, this isn't working. And then John wrote something, I forget what article it was, and it was about the challenge sets or whatever it was. And so I called him up and said, man, talk to me a little bit about what you're doing, because this sounds like it might be a bridge, for me here, where I can kind of get the best of both worlds. And so we started talking, and then our ideas were kind of in line. And he said, well, let me come out Saturday and we'll train. I'm like, well, squat. It's Saturday. Squat is leg day. It's squat to me. It's squat day. And he's like, oh, so legs on the squat.
Yeah.
Two different things.
It's squat and 17 other exercises.
Yeah, I mean, we came out and it wasn't like trying to position one over the other. We just trained and just brutalized the shit out of each other. Then he's like, I'm coming back next week. And I'm like, okay, now wait a minute. like, I love this. This is freaking awesome. But what are you training for?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to do this, what value can I add?
Yeah.
Because he's adding value because he's showing me things I don't know. You know, I know the strength stuff. And that's when he was saying, look, I'm going for this pro, because I didn't know shit about him since the Westside time. Like,
what year were you guys at Westside together?
Oh, God. It had to be maybe 95.
Okay.
Sounds about
98.
right.
Yeah. I'm not good with stuff like
I'm
that.
not that either. I was just kind of.
I was out of there about 2004, so it was long. It was during the Demis days.
Yeah.
And so it was and it was the earlier Demis days, because we just went from the Sullivan place to the Demis place. So maybe a couple of years into that, or even the first year into that.
Okay.
And it wasn't long, maybe about a year or so.
Right.
But he was in the morning crew, which is where we were at. And he trained hard. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he trained hard. He did that. You know, but it was just two things and he was out, you know, where he wasn't doing the boring shit, you know, the stuff that the reverse hypers and all the other kind of stuff. And I get now why, because he was doing all the other things. But when we reconnected with that, that's when he was saying, you know, look, I've been trying to do this pro card thing. And I'm like, weren't you trying to do that back when? And I'm like, how many times has this been? And then it was ridiculous, man. I'm like, so you've been trying to do this like 10 fucking times and you're falling short second every time. So I'm like, okay, what's the plan here? Like, and so that was a big conversation. Like, what have you done? What have you not done? What do you think will work? What might not work? You know, just from the mental standpoint, huge respect. Yeah. But this is where the only argument, fight, or whatever you want to call it, I ever had with him was, okay, so your end game here is the pro card.
So, So I got a good story that ties into that, right?
Yeah.
So whatever it was, 2012, 13, 14, when he's getting those second places, right? You're working with him. You guys are communicating together. And like you're saying, it's not, all right, Dave, I got to get my pro card and I'm going on to the Olympia. I'm going to win the Olympia, right? He wasn't saying
just
that.
the pro card.
It was,
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, that was his Olympia.
Yeah.
That was the end game, right? Because I know bodybuilding. I'm not an idiot, right? He had little kids too.
Yeah.
And I know the strain that puts on a family, no matter what anybody wants to say. So this is a big part of this conversation, because I've seen too many relationships dissolve and all this stuff. It's like, this was a serious conversation. Like, you know, it's, I'll help you. I don't know shit about bodybuilding, but I do know a lot about exercises and trying to change activation, and different movements and the physique. You just tell me and I'll help with that. And then if, you know, one time with his lats, he's like, I need to push the volume of it was a bigger conversation. It's like, my lats are a weak point. And he says, but my back can't take, you know, the squatting and all this other stuff. And so it was, okay, you need to build your legs like the biggest you can possibly be, bigger than, you know, something that would hurt you on stage in the off season, because we're going to pull the squatting and we're going to pull all that stuff out and just do regular leg work, so we can increase the volume of the lat work to where you want it to be. So there's a balance there. And I said, that's going to allow that to grow. The legs are going to be a little bit smaller, but hell, they're already 2 inches too big after that you can deal with that. And there's a long plan, you know, to be able to work it out.
So did you guys just hit like the accessory work a lot harder for his legs in and pulling the squats out?
Well, that's when the squats really became, because for him, it was always the second movement. Okay. Right. So then it became third or fourth movement. And then it became different types of squats, you know, like a front squat or a straight bar or, you know, the power squat machine. And then it just came all the way out. So you had to watch his leg size, you know, and I've seen him so much that I could see, you know, here's what this is. And even with his body fat and stuff like that, it's his lower back was his telling factor. It was like, there's this water, it's this, you know, and I didn't know shit about posing. So, you know, one time he just posed, I'm like, oh my God, your lower back looks like shit. You know, what the fuck did you do? And then he fixed it. I'm like, man, you can't do that to me, because I'm not, I don't have the eye for that, like what you do. But and it was really hard, man. It was hard for me, because you would see him go North Americans, second, Masters Nationals, second. It's like,
And then there was also there'd also be at least once, maybe twice, where there's a little controversy around so it was like just there was so much drama around it, and so
that's when you know somebody like truly loves a sport or they're just like truly passionate about something too. And because after that, getting kicked in the throat that many times, being knocked down, it's very easy to either be like, well, I got second, that's good.
But then that was his mindset. So he had this rule for the clients, and he followed it himself, where there was a 24-hour rule, right? If after your show you don't agree with the judging or for whatever reason you're upset, all right, you got 24 hours to, you know, whatever, be mad at yourself, cuss at yourself, like, you know, you can't be attacking somebody else, but like you got 24 hours to deal with this, and then it's time to just move on. And like that you can apply that to almost anything in life too.
Yes. Now some of them he took better than others, but this is probably something that people don't know, you know, about John. Like some of them he was like, yeah, whatever, you know, he legitimately knew he got beat. You know, the other person was better. There were other ones that wasn't the case. And then when it was a Saturday and we had a bigger group training out there. He would come in and he'd say, look, I need to talk to you. Let's go into the office, which was separate from the weight room. Then we go in the office, and he was pissed about it. You know, I'm like, well, you know, and so I'm letting him vet it out. And it's like, now how much of this is controlled by you? You know, if this is a political thing, is there a relationship you need to build with other people that you haven't built? You know, what do you need to do? Is this a show that you're just not going to do? You know, but it's hard, man, because you see the work and the dedication, everything that's going into that.
The pain
and then
and
to fall short, right? And when it actually, I mean, it took several more times. I don't know how many. I mean, I have to go back and look. Probably 5, 6.
Yeah,
I mean, it was a few years, man. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a little story around when he won his pro card, right? So going back to you saying the goal was get your pro card, right? That was the Super Bowl for him. We're getting a pro card, and right, and so I think it was 2015, whatever year it was, the year he wins it. The way those shows are ran, it's like late, it's like midnight or later that that you win, that he finally won or whatever. So.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that.
So he said by the time, like, right, you win. He went out. They probably went out to eat. And I think it was like after he won, he had already determined what his next steps were, right? And so I hadn't talked to him then. So then it's like Sunday. Usually there's like photo shoots or whatever. And I think it was, the way I remember, it's Monday. I get a text and he's like, hey, you want to train chest? And I'm like, oh, great. He's back. He wants to do a little celebration chest training. So I'm like, all right, this is great. Like, I haven't seen him yet. It's going to be awesome to see him. And so I think, I don't know, he said like 6 o'clock or something like that. And so then I get another text, sorry, I'm running a little late. And that's not really normal. So I'm like, huh. And so then the way Lifetime's set up, we're still at Lifetime. You come up, he shows up, and it's him and Mary walking up, which isn't too out of the normal, right? Sometimes she would come and train with them. And so they come walk up, and he's like, oh, sorry, I'm late. He's like, the airplane just got in. He's like, we just threw our bags in the house. And he's like, and I came right over. He's like, let's start training chest. And I was like, whoa. He's like, after we're done training chest, he's like, then we'll go pick up the boys. Like, he literally got off the plane, and he's like, it's time to train, right? And so I'm like, you know, this is a little odd, right? After like, just like you're saying, it was like retire, like he won the Super Bowl already, and he's like immediately, he's like, all right, I got to get better. He's like, I don't know what it was. I got 14 days till the Vancouver Pro.
Oh, then he did 6 more in 7 weeks,
so
right?
He did like 2 or 3 shows, like right after he won the pro card, and then that next year, that's when he did like 5 shows.
In 6 weeks.
Within 6 weeks, because when he went to do the shows right after he won his pro card, he got top 5, and so in his mind it was like, all right. After that, he's like, I'm doing pretty good. He's like, if I do enough shows and I can get enough points, and then I'll be able to go to the Olympia. But like, I just thought the story was funny that it was like, what he said is as soon as he was done having dinner that night, he knew, all right, in 2 weeks I'm going to Vancouver Pro. And it was just like, when he came over, I was like, well, what happened to retirement? And so every time I hear you tell the story of retirement was a Super Bowl, I think of him getting right off the airplane and it's time to train chest. And he ended up saying, like, he's like, yeah, the day before I did legs with, I forgot who he said. So it was like, he wins the pro car, he trains legs like on Sunday, and you know you're dead already from the show, and then the next day he's coming in, we're doing chest, and he's like, he's on to the next show already. So
I got a phone call, right?
Funny. I don't know if it's funny. I don't know what the moral of the story is. Just determined his determination that,
because I had a call, right? So it's somewhere after that first week, he calls. I'm like, I'm sending a text, congratulations, just texting back and forth. Then he calls and he says he's going to do this. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah.
And I said, I thought this was about the pro card.
Thought it was over.
And he just starts, explaining, like he does, like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I'm like, John, look, stop. I can't talk to you right now. I'm hanging up the fucking phone. Yeah. I will see you when you get back. This is not what we agreed on. Yeah. Because I was pissed, man, because to me, there was a process, because he's trying to build a business, and this all this other kind of stuff.
And that was like you're saying, the business. That was the prime peak of his website.
Yes.
Right.
So he's trying to push that. So he'd already stepped away from that, the job, and all the other stuff. And in my mind, I knew, he doesn't have the genetics to be Mr. Olympia. So then, he's texting the 212, and I'm like, oh, fuck, here. So now we're going to make this even worse. He's like, you're fucking this is not, I was mad, right?
There's a crazy story about him spending, I don't know, 5 hours in the sauna. Like,
I heard all that
practically
shit.
Killing himself, right?
Yeah, so I'm getting those texts, for the Vancouver stuff and all that. And I'm just ignoring him. I'm ghosting him. Yeah. And then when he finally came out, I'm like, we need to talk. And I'm like, this is not what we agreed upon. And so we're kind of going back and forth. And he knew I was pissed about it. Yeah. And I'm like, you got to explain to me why here. I said, I'm going to support you no matter what you want to do. Yeah. But you need to tell me what the payoff is here. Like, what's the benefit of this? You did what's impossible. And then even from a marketing standpoint, with his business, I mean, if you step out now, perfect. Now you go on this downslide, of going in these shows and you're getting older and you don't place as well, marketing wise, that may not be the best, for that kind of thing. And once we talked it through, I saw where he was going. I still don't agree with it, but I saw, and now I can look back and say it did help him. Yeah. It did help his business. He built more contacts than he probably would have had, from that. He also found contacts that weren't good, took advantage of him as well. Yeah. But the conversation shifted to, I always wanted to do the Arnold Classic.
That's what,
And I'm like, I'm not buying that bullshit, John. This was about a pro card. So you can say whatever you want to say. I'll still help whatever you want to do with, and advise in whatever it's going to be. And it changed a little bit too, because he started traveling a hell of a lot more, because he knew the only way he was going to get there was points. Yep. And we mapped it out one time, and I can't remember what it was, but how much he spent in 1 year competing as a pro. Oof. Compared to the $250 he won for the 1/5 place, whatever it was. Yeah. It was fucking insane. So even me trying to, because I'm kind of, I don't want to say a mentor or advisor, but talking with him about business and stuff. I'm like, this makes no financial sense. I mean, you're hundreds of thousands of dollars upside down. Yeah. How does this?
He was flying all the way to, like, we're in
and
Ohio.
with his kids,
flying all the way to, he's bringing the whole family. It's basically a quote unquote vacation. But going to Vancouver, you're going all the way to Florida.
But part of that is what shifted my perspective or perception of it all, though, because he said, this provides me the opportunity to take my kids and Mary, to all these different places they may not otherwise be able to see. Now looking back, what a great opportunity for those kids and for them to be able to travel the world, to be able to do that. Yeah. Even at that loss, he maximized that opportunity more so than just him. Yeah. If it was just him flying everywhere to compete, then you could see where, that would be a strain on the relationship. Right. But he did know at a certain point, this is the time to be able to step out. And then he didn't really know he was in my spot, where when I met him, and it's like, well, here's what helped me, so just try to help other people, which he was always doing.
Then at the very end, that's when he kind of found football and coaching football, and
he fell in love with that. I felt like more than bodybuilding. Well, towards the end, absolutely.
I don't know how much he ever talked about, but that was the first love, right? He played football in high school. Yeah. He wanted to be, an NFL football player, but obviously you're 5'6", he's not going to be. He was a running back and a linebacker. Yeah. He's got slim chance of playing in the NFL, and
No need to make fun of short people.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, yeah. Well, I remember going over to his house one day, and he was like, man, check out the playbook that I put together. I'm looking at these plays, and I was like, this is like top of the line stuff. I was like, how long did you spend on this? He's like, oh, like 6 or 7 hours straight. And I was like, what?
I don't think people realized how much time and effort he was putting in to be the best, because he was like offensive coordinator, the best football coach he could be.
There was nobody else putting in the same amount of time. I'll tell you that.
No way.
He was spending time with the family. He was training with me. And then basically, he was still coaching clients. If he wasn't coaching clients, then he was studying football.
Yeah.
I can't remember how many different times he would come in and he's like, I just signed up for this seminar for the number 2 offensive coordinator from South Carolina who runs this, I don't know, offense, Y2K banana. Like every day he would come in the gym. He's like, check out this new play I wrote up. He's like, no, stand over here. He's like, the offensive lineman's going to do this.
He would in the middle of the gym.
Yeah, I know.
Because before we would train, we would sometimes talk for like an hour before just about football, and then we would start training.
Yeah, when he would come out, he was doing that as well.
Yeah.
When we went to Philly, to be able to work with those people out there, it's, I can't remember all the players' names. I like football, but it's not a huge passion of mine. I don't follow
his name slipped on my mind, but the offensive lineman, I think, spent a bunch of time with him.
Yeah. So there's like 5 of them that are out there. So we went out there to,
And it wasn't like, a Joe Schmo. Like it was the starting.
No.
It was
he
like
was
the starting lineman for the Eagles.
Yeah, I feel terrible not knowing his name right now. But at one point in time, I believe he was the highest paid lineman in the NFL. He still may be now. But anyhow, great guy. I mean, great guy. And he had a great group of people with him. And he had his own trainer there, which his name slips my mind too. But it was a great time going out there and spending, I don't know, 3 days, whatever we were out there. But there were so many times, that we'd be in the house just talking with the other guys and stuff and be like, where's John? Well, he's outside, with the center, right?
Running plays.
And I'm like, he started doing that like 4 hours ago. Like we got done training 4 hours ago. They stepped out and started doing that. We went inside to eat because they had a chef and stuff making food. And 4 hours, it's 4 hours. I mean, I'm like, did he fall asleep? No. Then he'd come in and eat, then he'd go back out there again, and it was just constant, man. It was driving me crazy, to be honest. We go to dinner, it's just boom, 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 boom. I'm like, can we just like talk about lifting weights, man? And it's
give me some meathead stuff.
Oh, no, it was like, wow, man, let's just talk about getting strong. And like, John, I don't want to talk about that. It's football. It was, he found it, man. It was a great passion that he had.
When the kids ended up, I got to watch them win the championship, and you would have thought he won his pro card again. Because he lost it, man.
Yeah.
That was awesome. They went undefeated that year, I believe, or they get beat once. I don't know. But they ended up winning, and we got to be there for it. Then, after he passed, they won it again.
Yeah.
The next.
Yeah.
So this past year.
So that brings up the memory. The last time I saw him, it was a Friday. And I don't remember anything about the training, but he was so pumped because Saturday morning was draft day. Right, and he's got
the kids.
He's evaluated.
They took that serious.
He's evaluated the kids, and like, I don't mean it disrespectful at all, but he had a list of these kids, and he's like, here, look at this. He's like, these are the DNDs. He's like, no matter what, do not draft. He had these kids. He's like, these kids cannot be on my team. But he's got a whole strategy about the way the draft's going to go and how he's picking to set up the team. And I can't remember if it was like, he's like, we got to be like, I don't know if it was strong in the lineman. He's like, I know this kid's going to dominate at the offensive lineman position. And then with our quarterback, because I think the quarterback was the son's kid. So he's already on the team. He's like, this, and he was so excited for the and so that Saturday morning, he went through and they did the draft, and then later that day or the next day is when he passed. But we would always, as we were watching that team, the team went undefeated. They went undefeated. They won the championship that he drafted. It was always, hey, you're watching this, you're like, John, you drafted a hell of a team. But the team went undefeated. I lost my train of thought. I remember where I was going.
Well, they ended up winning.
And what he did was he took the takeaway from that is he took when he was bodybuilding, that same amount of passion and energy went into that. Yeah. So he found and he took all that and put it into football, which during the lockdown period, you know, he was considering running for office, right?
Yeah.
And that was a big thing. I'm like, John, look, man, you took all this energy and you put it into football, which is a good thing. That's a great thing. You know, that you need that. I don't know if you need a third thing, you know, to be able to put in there because you still got a business to run.
Yeah, that was a pretty big.
And then I think he found like his address was like just outside of the city limits, so then he couldn't run for what he wanted to run.
It was like half a mile.
He was looking at other things.
He'd have to be like a, I don't know, county commissioner or something instead of like.
I was like, why don't you just buy a small house in town or something? He's like, well, I'm thinking. I was like, okay. I was kind of just joking, but he wanted to do it, man.
But football was like, I don't know if people understand how serious in Pickerington where he lives football was, and so. Yeah. He was coaching the little league version of football, and then he was about to start coaching in middle school. He was going to be, he was going to be the offensive coordinator for the 7th grade middle school.
Pickerington North or something like that.
Yeah, we'll butcher it. I'm not sure, but
it was 7th grade football.
But it's so serious that like as soon as you get in the 7th grade middle school, that's a feeder system for the high school, and you're running like the exact same. Verbiage and scheme that they're running in high school, and then I think he was able to take that, and that's what he was using for like the little league version. And these are, I don't know, were they 12 years old or whatever? And his plan was he's running the no huddle offense. And so like we said, half the time he's just explaining to me how he's going to run the no huddle offense, and he's going to be able to communicate to the quarterback, and he's like, we're going to just destroy the other teams. He's like, we're just going to run, throw. He's like, they won't be able to stop us. He's like, and I don't know, he's got the whole thing planned out. He's put so much time and effort into that.
Yes. Well, the cool thing with him is he would show me this play, like, oh my God, these are like 7-year-old kids. I don't know how old they are.
Well, that's what I'm saying. How do they?
He was able to teach them to do that.
Yes.
You know, and that's a skill set that not very many people have. You know, and because most of the time you're dealing with kids that young, you got like 4 plays. Let's just master the 4 plays.
Like 22 dive, run up the middle. He's got banana flip 3000. I'm like, what in the world? Like, what do you got going on here, man?
He would say, he's like, none of these people give the kids enough credit. He's like,
true.
If you teach, and you know, he had a whole strategy on it. It was like, this was like the base. I don't know how it is, and there was like 8 plays or 10 plays, and then you're just, you know, you're kind of building off that. Here's whatever 6 more to go. That, you know, and so he had this ridiculous this ridiculous playbook,
and the communication skills to do it. You know, that's the thing. And there's no doubt that. Long term, you know, he would have been coaching high school.
Yeah.
That's what I was curious to see is where he would have taken the coaching part, because
he told me that's what he didn't want to do anything higher than that.
No, okay, so that's kind of what I was curious. Yes. I knew he wanted to end up high school. I was like, man, if he takes these kids all the way to high school and they already have these plays down, that's going to be a hard team to beat later on, especially them being good already.
Now, when I look through these questions that people posted, a lot of them were. They're all kind of grouped. There's like 5 big questions out of all of them that were in there. They want us to talk about some of the most brutal training sessions. So, you know, I'll let you go first. Like, what's the ones that come to your mind?
Well, first,
or exercises or method or whatever.
All right. Well, first, I'd like to say, a lot of people see John as a very calm, chill. I'm teaching you these videos. So like, it's nice to like watch the videos and do it. But for the people that train with him, that's not the way it's going. Like, he's still calm, but it's like, it's no joke.
It's like a serial killer.
Yes, exactly. It is.
The skill he had was, he could, you know, you could be in between a set laughing and joking, and then he would turn around and he'd flip the switch.
Yeah.
And that's like a skill in itself versus some people. It's like that you open the door and they'll just they're gonna try to rage for like 2 hours and you're gonna burn out. Where he could cool, collect, and then boom.
It was funny. We were gonna train legs one time, and he's like, "Okay, so we're gonna take it. Cool." We'd always start with hamstring curls. That's one thing. So we would start a lot of times with the weakest muscle of that body part first, so you can get blood into that muscle first, blah, blah, blah. We'd always start with hamstring curls, right? So he would talk me through it, and then I remember one leg day, we kind of went through it, and it was tough. I was burning up, and he's like, okay, so this next one's going to be tough. So it was tough, and then he's like, this next one you're probably going to throw up. And I was like, how are you just going to tell me I'm going to throw up? So Bulgarian split squats. We went up. We went heavy. Well, for me, I mean, heavy for me at that time.
It doesn't matter.
It didn't matter. It was like 35 pounds. It was honestly the top dumbbell, but we kept going, and I think I have a video. Basically, I was grabbing onto his arm. He was just like sitting there, and I think Noah may have been filming with my camera and whatnot. But anyway, I was finishing up. It was the last one, and I was like, I'm gonna throw up. I'm really gonna throw up. And I threw up, and it was after that, and he just like kind of like laughed about it. I was like, he was right, man. That was just. But the Bulgarian split squats were always tough. I think it's the Arsenal, the pendulum squat. Pendulum squat, that was tough. That was always weird for me to feel at first, but when I would do it with him, he would have like these different techniques that he could look at and be like, no, you're doing this wrong, do it this way. And then I'd feel it a bit better. That one was tough. The lunges were always tough. The
pond lunges? Did you do the pond lunges?
Yeah, I did. Pond lunges, that was a bunch of bullshit.
That would have sucked.
It did
so, you know,
suck,
I never did it, but I don't know. I might have said, no, I ain't doing that.
Yeah.
So at the American Barbell, this was at American Barbell, right? And there was when he went to move, we were at his barn, and out behind the barn, there's like, I don't know how big it is, like the size of an acre, a pond. And so I don't know, somehow we're like, all right, well, let's do pond lunges. Is what we were calling them.
And he'd always get so excited. It's like, what is wrong with you? You know we're about to endure here. And he's just like, all right, like it's the end of the workout. Let's do a mile of lunges, basically.
So if there was like 3 of you, I think it would be like four rounds of like each person got 4 rounds of like 40 steps. Okay. And like it took like 10 minutes, basically. You're lunging around this entire freaking pond. But again, that was just like his creativity. But for me, like one of the first things that comes to mind is the Bulgarian split squat drop set of death that we would do. Like most people probably know what that is, but if you don't, like you're working up, and so you're just going to do and this is with each leg, right? You're going to you're going to do your body weight, 10 reps. And then we would grab a 25-pound dumbbell, and you're going to do 10 reps each leg. Grab a 50-pound dumbbell, you're doing 10. You're going to keep doing that, and we would go up. I think we would go 50, 70, 90. And so once you did the 90, then it was like the drop set of death, right? And so you're going to take the 90-pound dumbbell, and you're going to do 10 reps on your one leg. And then when the 10 reps are done, you're going to do an iso hold for 10 seconds. Yeah, man. Then you're going to drop that dumbbell, and then you're going to pick up the 70-pound dumbbell, 10 reps, and then you're going to hold that for an iso hold for 10 seconds. You're going to do that with the same thing with the 50-pound dumbbell, with the 25-pound dumbbell, down to the body weight. And so that was just one side of the body.
Just one leg. So 40 reps and 40 seconds of iso hold.
Right?
Yeah, 50.
Yeah. And so that sucked in itself, because it was like somebody
there's so many parts of it that suck. For one, you're winded. Okay, we're out of shape here. So we're breathing hard. It does feel like someone's stabbing you, and you're just on one side, and you know that you got about 5 more minutes of this.
And then you got to do the other leg.
You have to go to a different place, man.
And so anybody, like if you realized it or not, and you're training with John, you are sort of like a volunteer participant in his training experiments, right? Because every program he wrote, he didn't just like go home and just make up programs. He was doing them, and then he would go back and like provide feedback, right? He would experiment with something and be like, well, that was too much, so we'll only do 2 sets instead of 3 or whatever. So he would take the feedback, and he did everything. So when you're training with him, it was like that Bulgarian split squat drop set of death, which is hard to say. It was like, all right, well, let's try doing that first. How does that feel? And then how does that impact the rest of the leg work? Let's do it in the middle. How does that feel and impact the leg? Let's do it last. How does that feel? Well, what comes to mind is one day we get in there, and you are in trouble if he's like, all right. He's like, this is going to be fun. And
then you know it's not going to be fun.
Yeah. He's like, or I got an idea. Like, that was never good. I got an idea. Like, this is not going to be good. So it was the Bulgarian split squat drop set of death, but with the way you started it, you do your body weight, but then we're supersetting it with a freaking leg press. So everything I did, your first set, you're supersetting with a leg press. All right, then we're going to add 2 more plays. We're going to grab the 25-pound dumbbell. We're going to work up. We're going to superset with the leg press. And the whole time I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? Like, this is ridiculous. So by the time you get up, I don't know if there's 7 or 8 plates. And so you're then supposed to do that whole drop set and then walk over to the freaking leg press and do another 12 reps on the leg press. And then, then you do that once and you're just dead. Well, then how the hell are you supposed to do the other leg? It's like, I need 10 minutes to recover and come back and do the other one.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that was one of the ones that first comes to mind is like, just what are we doing here? Like, we did it first, and you could have just walked out of the gym. Like, that could have been a leg. And I can't remember anything what we did after that, but I know we did like 3 or 4 exercises. Like, it was, that's one that comes to mind. That was just ridiculous. And that was kind of like an older one where you just didn't know what he was going to do.
I will say it was fun sometimes when I would go in there and I knew I was training by myself, but you guys would be in there training legs already. I would take multiple videos of him laying on the floor when I would get in there, and I would know that you guys were training legs because you have a bunch of people around, and people are just like looking at you guys like, what is going on? And I'm like, good thing I'm a few weeks out here. I don't have to worry about that right now.
Yeah, when he was starting with those, it started out of my place. So it was, I hate single leg stuff. I just despise it, right? Like,
or single arm, right?
A single arm, right? So he loved dumbbell rows, man. And I did everything in my power to try to divert away from that. Cause to me, they're just bodybuilding burpees. And I mean, it is. And he knew it. So he'd always try to put it in there. There were always drop sets, same kind of thing. We're going to work up and we're going to start with the 120s and we're going to go to the 90s. And like, why don't we just do like the 120s, 110? I mean, I would just exaggerate it just to get him to not do it. Let's just use every dumbbell if we're going to do this, because if it's going to suck, let's make it suck worse. So then it's like, I got this idea, and it was a Bulgarian. It was a split squat, but it was just a drop set, and it was just 3 drops. It was like 50s, 25s body weight. So we did a couple sets of that, and then he went to do something. And I always tried to make it harder. Like, he would come up with something and be like, then with that one, he was last, right? So he would do the 50. So he did the 50, and then I made him hold it with the dumbbell.
Yeah, because that's what we're doing. That's what it turned into.
So and then it would like wreck him, right? Just wrecked him. Then he's like, oh, wait a minute. What if we do? And I'm like, oh, fuck.
What did I create?
He created it. It was 100% his creation. I was just trying to make it harder for him. Because what I would try to do is he would come in, he'd be like, I get this idea. Like, well, what is it? And then I'd go. And then I would try to take whatever his idea was and make it harder. Just because it's his idea, he already thinks it's hard. If I go first and he's going to go second, I'm going to make it as terrible for him as I possibly can. So I ISO hold a leg press or whatever it's going to be. Or say we're going to do a strip set, a drop set on leg presses. So it's like, okay, we'd work up to whatever that weight was. Says, okay, we're going to work up the weight, then we're going to do drop sets with 2 plates off each side. So it's 6 drops or whatever it's going to be. So it's like, you go first. I'd go it. So I'd do it, and then I'd purposely not rack it. He's like, no, rack it. I'm like, because it was going to be like a rest pause count. I'm like, fuck that. Let's just go. I'm just going to hold it. Because all I'm thinking is it's going to be terrible for him. And I'm going first. And then I realized that's not the way to do it. You let him go first.
So
right?
Did you usually go first all the time?
No, we mixed it up. We mixed it up, yeah.
So like when I trained with him, and anytime anybody ever kind of came in and was training with us, he always went first. And that was him setting the tone, setting the example that this is how this is how you should train. This is how I'm going to train. This is how I'm going to show you how to train.
It depended on what we were doing. Because if it was his idea, he was going first, right? If it was something like, hey, what if we try to do this? Something that was mine, then I would go so he could look at it, right? And because the thing was, I'm trying to do this movement, but I'm basically disabled, right? So I can show him what I'm trying to do, and then he can go try to mimic it. And he was always lean, even he's always been lean. And that was awesome for me because I could, like with you earlier, I can see what's moving and what's working. The leaner somebody get with him, you could see the fibers actually moving. And I'm like, okay, this isn't what I'm thinking here. We need to get it lower or higher. If it's, a big fat power lifter, it's really hard to tell on lat work, like what's really doing this work here. With him, it was bluntly obvious. And then he would get flush. So you could see where the blood is. I mean, the freaking purple. Like we're training the lats are purple.
He'd get the pump.
Yeah, he'd get the pump. Now, that was another thing. That was the other thing that took me a while, man, because he had these stupid bodybuilding sayings, which is probably normal for bodybuilders, like, train for the pump and, all this. I forget what some of the other ones, but he would be putting them out there like, make sure to get a peak contraction. I'm like, dude, don't ever say that to me again. You know, just stupid stuff like that. You know, like stretch and flex. I'm like, don't ever. And he was serious about it. I mean, he like really, really loved it. And one time he said, man, it was like after doing leg curls or whatever it was. It's like, man, my hamstrings are pumped, man. Are yours? I'm like, don't ever ask me that again. You know, then one time he said, oh God, what was it? It's better to look strong than to be strong. I'm like, dude, and that one there,
he crossed the line.
That's it. Like all the other one I'm going to make fun with you about, but that one's bullshit. It's better to be strong than look strong. And it's like, no. It says this way no matter where I go. And we're like just fucking, just talking shit. Wherever I go, they're going to think I'm stronger than you. I'm like, that's bullshit. And it was crazy, but but some of the things that I remember, and none of them are like major ones, is starting with the leg curls, you know, stuff like that. I always just start with the squat, and I just use the bar for a ton of sets. And he's like, no, you want to start with the hamstrings to be able to, whatever, we'll see what's going to happen. The whole time I'm thinking, my squat's going to suck because I'm doing this first. Yeah, and I sit back when I squat. And it was the work, like we talked earlier, it was the freaking work sets. I'm like, okay, we're doing this. I'm like, okay, we're done. And it's like, no, it's like, now we're going to start doing our sets. We're going to do 6 work sets. And I'm like, the fuck did we just I know I just did like 2 sets that actually did some work. Like now it's like that's 8 sets. And I'm like, so then you don't know when it's gonna end. You know, that was the thing, is like, when's this stupid exercise gonna end? And there are multiple times where I'm like, John, look, I am bored with this now. Because I would just get bored. It's like, let's go to something else. This is I'm done with this. Let's do something else. Sometimes I do it after like 1 set. Like this is dumb.
What's next?
Let's just do something else. But the one thing, and a lot of the principles that he would bring to light, we all knew, or we did, you know, younger as kids, but you just forgot about him. He had this unique way of remembering them. Or you did it by accident, like an upset, you know, which is the opposite of a strip set. I never really called it an upset. But I mean, we've all done it, like with dumbbell, running the rack on the dumbbell curl, right? You just grab, or side raises, you know, up and down the rack. We've all done it.
But the average person is going to do that on a bicep curl, not the leg press.
Not the leg press,
not the leg press.
And I'm like, okay. And it's like, I remember it was like 3 plates per side. And it's, okay, throw a plate on. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? You know, like, okay, let's go. And then sometimes there would be a strip set going back down. Sometimes it was just up. Sometimes it was, so it's things like that were just, you know, brutal. But for me, the single leg stuff, I hate it. I just try to pivot off of it, you know, just because it's so much, because you set your mind to do it. This is where I think for me, it was so hard, because you get through the one leg, you're kind of like, okay, done. You know, but no, there's a whole nother one. It's like, how do you prepare yourself?
Mentally, You're like, damn, I got to do this again? Yeah,
and we touched on it a little bit earlier. You touched on it about the mindset, where he was really big on that. And I've always kind of been big on the same thing. You have to train your mindset to be ready for the training session, most definitely. But John taught me with a larger volume, just just rest. It's rest. Just rest. But then when you get under the weight, turn it on, you know, and I've always done that with speed work and powerlifting. So you learn, especially at Westside, because the speed work, the squats are every 60 seconds. So you realize real quick, and we weren't allowed to sit down. You know, so you do your set, and then you put your mind in a rest place, because you're going to be back under there real quick. And if you stay hyped, you know, like the whole, you're not going to get the benefit.
You're going to lose a little bit too.
Yeah, and you're going to lose the ability to apply force that you need to apply. And that also carries over to a meet, all the other stuff, because you're just going to exhaust yourself. But in bodybuilding, where there's so much volume, you know, you can't, you know, be walking around the gym, you know, with imaginary lat spread like you want to punch people the whole training session, because you're not going to get anything out of the training session. Or what you're going to get out of it's going to be so limited. I'm trying to think of some of the other things that there's a lot of stupid things, you know, that just failed.
The one thing about I thought the way that you did, especially the first time that we did it by doing leg curls first, I was like, man, no, squat's going to suck. But it didn't. When I would squat, because my quads were so overpowering and my hamstrings, and I think from last season to even this season, I've done every leg workout like that, started off that way. Then when I would squat, though, I can actually feel my glutes and my hamstrings working when I'm sitting back, and my quads aren't taking everything like they normally did. Because when I would do my side poses or my side try, side chest, whatever it may be, it just looked like from the front my legs look big, but then when I turn they disappear. because it was just
You
flat.
didn't have that hang.
Then I started doing the other stuff, and then I would feel it while I was squatting. I mean, your quads are going to work when you're squatting. They're going to work. So, but when I had some blood already flowing in there, and then I would squat and I would sit back and I would feel it, then my hamstring started to really make some growth, actual growth, and it just felt a lot better too.
Now, there were a lot of training sessions, and I don't think people get this either, that were just sets and reps. So it all periodized, right? So there were some, and John, it would be in John's programs, because his programs were, like you said, it's what he did. So he would do the program, he would make adjustments, and he would put it in there. There were some phases where it's basically off season. There's not really pushing anything. It's just maintenance type of mode. And it's sets and reps. There's no real challenge sets. It's just putting the work in that you need to put in. And then when those sets would start to get harder, it would slowly integrate into the program, where flexible. But the technique was always a vital component. Now certain times the technique, I don't want to say it was thrown out the window,
but it wasn't as paid attention to.
It's like now you just go, just do it, just get it done.
But that's when he would pick something safe, like going back to that
leg press,
the death machine that I would call it. Like it was so, like you couldn't hurt yourself. Like there would be times where you would just, at the dead stop, you would just sit there, gather yourself for 3 or 5 seconds, and you're doing one more rep. All right, you're gonna gather yourself again. Like you can't do that with a barbell squat.
Well, like you guys did with the chain deadlifts. I mean, that was kind of his thing there too, is we started that off of the floor, so I don't know how we came up with the weight. I think we started with 2 1/4. And then it was like, man, we need like 15 chains, too many chains. And it took a while to figure the setup, because chains were falling off, collars are falling off. So you learn to tape the collar off. And then over a period of time, it's like, man, my lower back's too sore from this. Not like bad, but it's just, we're not training erectors here. So over time, it's like, okay, it needs to be off 3 mats or whatever it's going to be. And 8 chains is about where you want it to be. And then whatever the weight is. And but that wasn't in there all the time. So it may go from the beginning of that training cycle. I don't know what you call it, like a Jefferson deadlift, where you hold on to the plates on a trap bar, or whatever. Reeves deadlift.
Those are fun. Those are back in
so it'd
the
be
day.
that, and that would be everything bridged into those harder things. So then that would bridge into the pulls off blocks, and then the chains, but when it was ever that challenge set, and I'm sure he did with you guys, you'd discuss it. Like, well, what's the challenge set going to be? Or maybe he just told you. And like, okay, we're going to do this. And this, like, okay, how can we make this almost impossible to get hurt on? Well, let's shorten the range of motion. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do this. To be able to, then after we would figure that out, it would be, is there going to be a benefit here? Right. Not only the mental, I think there's a big mental part of that, right? You feel like you actually accomplished something. So
there's a great pride in mentally knowing he was doing things that most people could not do.
And that has its own value. But there needs to be more value than just that. Because if that's the case, you whack your head against the wall. And so, I mean, that he was really good on that. That was a skill set that he had, was really good on. I could come up with really good ideas, but then it would be like, oh, I don't know about, like, let's do a script set of squats, right? And he's like, I don't know about that. Well, what if we just deloaded chain? Put 225 on there and put a bunch of chain, and then just pulled the chain off. That way the weight at the bottom, or the weight at the bottom basically stays the same, because the deload, the chain's deload at the bottom. I said, that way we're not going to get this shock, with this deload out of that. So a lot of these things would come in there. Then it was like, we probably shouldn't be doing any challenge sets on the squat, because his back got a little vulnerable. And like, okay, cool, we got to figure out the other stuff. But he had challenge sets for everything. Like the rear delt. So the other one that got me was the stupid dumbbell swings.
The rear delt destroyer.
It's like, I want you, we're just going to do like rear delt, just little tiny swings. Like, that's awesome. Okay.
So let's do it.
So
you do it.
80 reps. Like, huh? Well, they're just tiny. And like,
there was nothing that burned more than those, whatever, rear delt destroyer, or I think that's what he called it. So you could you could search his YouTube and you could see a video, but I can remember we would take 50 or 60 pound dumbbells, and like you're saying, you're not doing a full rear delt fly, you're just hanging and swinging, but you're doing 50 reps, and then we would drop to like a 25 pound dumbbell, do 25 reps, and then you would do a full range of motion without any weight. But when you got to the top, you were fighting against your partner. Right? It was kind of like I don't know what the right word is, but you try to do 10 reps of that, and your shoulders were just there was nothing like that. And like That's a good example of something. Like everything seems to be.
Or then even after that, what's those things he called them? They're like spider crawls or whatever.
Well,
spider walks. Yeah.
Even like you do a shoulder workout and then you end with that. That's no joke because they'll make your shoulders on fire.
The one that I couldn't really do because of the range of motion of my shoulder, but I tried. But the 6 ways.
Yeah.
You know that would light people up, which I think was what. How's that go? A front raise to a side raise.
Was it?
There's videos on his channel.
Side, front, up, down.
I'm a meathead, so I always messed it up. So he'd have to talk me through, but I could only go like my range of motion sucked.
And I remember picking up, it was like a 7.5 pound dumbbell. Like
it wasn't.
You were
much.
strong if you pick up a 10 pound dumbbell and did that.
Yeah, but that was probably one of the only ones that I was like, damn it, man, I wish I had range of motion in my shoulder to really feel what this could do. Yeah. Because everybody else, it would just light them up, and it was like 5 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it was always funny is when someone would try to.
Give me the 20 pound.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, go ahead.
Good luck, buddy.
Try it.
Well, that's a thing where when people come out to visit, right? This is where a lot of those videos get really misinterpreted, right? Because that building that work capacity with John took like 2 years, 2.5 years. It didn't start. I mean, the first sessions were brutal, but not like what it was. Yeah. So, and it took 3 years to get there. People would come out to train with us, and we're like, fuck it, just do what we're doing. You'll be fine. Just do what we're doing. They're like dying. They never... And we never told them.
This wasn't like Joe Schmo. This was like, here's my pro client.
Pro client. They're just smashed. Yeah. And he loved that. And but we never told him it took all this time, to be able to build that up.
That's just a
that's also what's so deceiving too. And he's like, well, when people come and work out with me, I'm going to do what I do. And if they get a good workout, that's great. If they don't, I'm like, okay, let's be real here. Everybody walks through the door, barely walks out of here. At least
that's what he would always say. It was like, I'm going to kill myself. And it was like, if you want to come along for the ride, it wasn't really, I want to kill that person.
Yeah, no.
He's like, I'm going to basically torture myself. Yeah. And then
Well, as I was telling you earlier, the day before he passed, the Juji put a video up of when Juji and Joey came out here. Yeah. And I'm just taking them through a modified version of one of the leg training sessions, just kill them. And Juji posted it on his site, I believe, and it's just grunting. It's just stuff that goes along with the leg training session. But he took all that and put it in a 1 minute clip, and John calls me, he's just cracking up, man. Like, this is the funniest thing in the entire world. And I'm like, man, we need to do that again. And he's like, he pauses for a minute. He's like, yeah, we do. That would be awesome. And I'm like, but we can't just jump in and do that. It took us years to be. So we're planning this out. I bet for 45 minutes.
How do you program that?
Well, if we started, you're already above where I am now. My strength is high, but I got to get my work capacity up. So give me like 3 months to get the work capacity up to be able to do what you're doing. And then from there, we'll start planning it out where maybe once a month we'll get together. So, I mean, we're actually laying this whole thing out. Yeah. And it's like 2 years, it's like a 2 year thing that we got laid out there. Then we both paused at the same time, like, you know what? Nah. No, I don't want to do it.
You'd rather eat donuts.
Yeah, it's like, this is too much, man. This is going to take too long. Yeah. I'm like, but we can build. And then it's like, okay, now, how do you get other people? Where can we stop? Then it changed the whole conversation of how do you get the other people there? Is it necessary? How much is necessary? And for that, he had a lot of those answers because I pivoted back into the conjugate thing. Yeah. So then it was, well, how much of all that do you really think made a difference now that you're separated enough from it? And it's hard to tell. It's always hard to tell. Yeah. In hindsight,
is it because of that or in spite of that?
Yeah, you don't know. I mean, but there's that. I mean, we both agreed at the ass end of that period, that was probably too much. To recover from. But and then it did pull back because we had to pull a lot of that back towards the end of his pro career because the 212 part and his waist was starting. He was getting criticized a lot for his waist, but for some weird ass reason, his abs started to come in.
All of a sudden,
which I don't know why.
He said he could finally start to feel them contracting. Yeah, right. He started to get.
He didn't have an explanation why, but
he said he had no idea.
It was like all of a sudden because he's got.
Well, that was right before he won his pro card. He said he could start to train them about 6 weeks out. So
and it was a different physique, and I'm like, well, don't do anything to fuck this up. So we don't want to put in that heavy spinal loading and all that other kind of stuff. So. That's where the conversation went. Well, you think maybe if we would have pulled that out earlier, that this made up, and you don't know in hindsight, but that was it was a weird conversation, right? But but the football came, that's what pivoted. Because I think what he realized through this is going to take a lot of time. And man, this football thing.
He was all in.
No, it was all football.
In.
And I'm like, dude, just stay with that. I'm cool doing my reverse band spider bar squat. I can do this forever, and it's cool with that. A bunch of the other. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I think I got one more that like came to mind because you were talking about the pump, and that brought it up.
Yeah.
Is and it's almost like a crazy culmination of 4 training sessions. So like it would have been the last time Missy came out and Ivana came out, because this is like Friday. Missy comes out, right? And what does Missy want to train? She wants to train leg and back. What does Ivana want to train? Legs and back. And so coming in, I'm like, oh, this is going to be brutal. So it's like, I know Friday, Saturday we're training. We're going to get Sunday off. Monday, Tuesday we're training again. And so Missy comes in on Friday, and we're like, all right, we got to do legs first and just get that over with, because we're going to try to somehow recover to be able to then do it all over again with Ivana, right? And
so they're separate times. They're not
yeah.
On the same day?
No. Right.
Oh, okay,
Friday, Saturday,
I got you.
Missy.
Yeah.
Sunday, we actually get a day of rest, and then Monday, Tuesday, Ivana. Right? But that's 5 days. 5 days of back and legs twice, where it's his clients coming in, and when they come in, they're not.
And he's training.
They're not
with
coming
them.
in. He's training with them, and then for some reason I'm riding with them. The exact same way. But they're coming in. It's not like you're gonna say. It's not like this is gonna be like some boring 3 sets of 10. We're not gonna put no. He's gonna, they're in their peak off season, I think, and so he's pushing them. And so Missy, it was like we did 3 different exercises for like hamstring, maybe 4. And then maybe you'll remember, it's the belt squat over here.
Yeah.
And we get to the freaking belt squat, and like you're saying, he's like, all right, we're going to do 30 reps. I'm like, okay, I can handle a set of 30 reps. We're going to work up to that, right? And that's just brutal. Like somehow you you're able to, because it was you were able to pause on the not the bench, the seat, whatever it is. Because it was
the
box.
The box.
Sorry. Yeah. So you were able to pause if you needed to gather yourself. So it wasn't 30 straight. Like this was like basically a challenge at the 30. And so John goes, he makes it through. I go, I make it through, I think. And then Missy goes, she makes it through. And then John's like, all right, we're gonna do it again. And like that's when you didn't know.
Isn't that the worst, when you feel like you already gave everything?
No, that's the worst part, because you don't know what again means. Because that could be one more set. It could be not. For me, when shit like that would happen, I would think 4 work sets, because he never did 3. Right, and it's like
later on he kind of calmed down.
Well, it's almost a good thing too, he didn't tell you, because then that doesn't.
No, it's not.
No.
Well, in a way for you, because if you can if you had say 315 on the bar, you can just stand. I mean, not contract. You know what I mean? Because if he's we had 3 of this, that first 30, I might just stand up.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
So then we get round 2 when John makes it through, and then I go and I don't know if it was 21 or 23, and I'm like, I'm done. And then all of a sudden you just start cussing at me, and you haven't lived unless Dave starts cussing at you through a set, and somehow I make it to rep 30, and then I remember Missy went, and as she's going, I don't mean this in a mean way at all. I swear, by the time she's in the 20 reps, it was the pain in her face, I thought she was going to start crying. Is what I saw. She
works, man.
But she worked through it, and she killed it. And I just remember John and I walking, because that's the 5th exercise, and the workout's not over. It's all right, time for the hack squat. And now you're on the hack squat, and you're not just doing sets 8 or 10 or whatever. It's I can't remember, a couple of drop sets and an iso hold. But I remember me and John walking, and we're the pump in my quads. I've never felt this before. We're this is amazing.
Yeah, I know. It
was this absolutely sucked, but it was the feeling, the pump,
the pump was worth it, man.
The pump, this is the greatest thing ever. But so then we move on to the hack squat, and then we did, I don't even know, whatever. My head hurt. I made it through that. And then I'm like, where's the puke bucket, Dave? Where's the puke bucket? And I remember the camera guy, it might even be Jacob over here. It was somebody, and I was like, man, I got to puke. And somebody's phone, he's like, you mind if I film? He's like, I really want to get this on video. And my head hurts. I got the cold sweats. My body is just fighting everything, and I can't puke. And I swear it was like 30 minutes of like, I don't know,
that's the worst.
Like a borderline stroke or something where I'm laying on the ground, I'm pacing back. I'm like, I can't get this feeling to go away. I can't throw, like, when is this going to end? And that was like the worst physical, I don't know, reaction to a training session with Don that I had. Because then I remember I walk over and like Missy and John are just like sitting on the ground playing in the Olympia. And I'm like, I'm dying over here. Like, did somebody be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
Do you like?
That's where you need him here for the EFT.
All I got is the camera. It's just the camera guy. Like, I want to get this on film.
Yeah, you make a valid point though, because when I was training with Louie, he would do the LATs, lactic acid tolerance training, right? So it would be like a deload, and it was always 315 with the or with a yoke bar when we would do that. And Louie would always just smash me like after 12, 13 sets. I'm like dying, man. I can't breathe, and he's just, you're out of shape. He'd end up always do 15 or whatever sets. This goes on for like 6 months or a year, maybe even longer than that, because it rotated in fairly frequently. And then one time, Chuck or somebody told me, watch when he does this. He's not standing up. No, he's not standing up with 100% force. I'm standing up like it's dynamic work on every set. And I'm like, oh no, wait a minute. It's only 315. I'm only going to put 315 pounds of force into this, because it's supposed to be dynamic work, but it's not. He's kicking my ass because he was only doing that. So then I breeze through this. I'm like, I can do this all fucking day. Then I kind of learned.
Piss him off?
Not really, but I didn't tell him, I know what you're doing, because you don't. I would fuck with him and say, look there, old man, I got your fucking ass now. I figured this out, and all this kind of stuff. I do 30 sets. Let's put more weight on. And he was pretty, Louis crazy, right? He was definitely crazy, but he was very rigid on what the work capacity was. If you're not going to exceed 15 sets, if you start shit talking, maybe 20. But there was one time Chuck and I did like 45, but that was a whole different. That was normally he would stop and say, look, that's it. Shut it down.
Guys, cut this out.
But if you know that, and if it is going to be that many sets, you can kind of pace it instead of just exploding up with the whole thing.
But just to putting a button on that was Friday, and then we come back Saturday. We train back really, really hard. Finally, we get the rest on Sunday, and I just remember driving over to John's house, like practically praying, like, don't let Ivana say she wants to do legs today, because I'm not gonna make it. Like, I'm just destroyed as it is. And so thank God she's like, oh, we can do back, so you guys can do legs the next day. But still, it was like, and then I think about it, like, why did I do everything? Why did I have to do everything? Like,
because you're a washed up meathead.
I could have just been like, well, I'm not gonna do that, or I'm gonna do arm stick. Like that you could have done, but that wasn't even like an option. It was just like, that's what we're gonna do, and that's the challenge of today. Can you make it through this work?
I think with all the sessions that we did with him, the important takeaway is these are all great stories or fun stories, but I would say 80-90% of the training was just the standard sets, reps, just putting the work in. The big takeaway on that part was the consistency. There's a lot of people that's the boring part. Like I said earlier, some of the stuff is just so freaking boring. Like, let's do something else. I'm bored to death. Like the lat pull downs today that we did, that's a lot of sets, right? Where it's fun today because I haven't done it for a long time. Do that for 6 months. It's like, come on, man. This is like 13 sets, 14 sets. And we would use the other handle, then flip it, so whatever sets it was, 8 sets or whatever today, it's 16. It's like, come on, man, I am bored to death. There's other things that we can do.
16 sets for the first exercise, and you got like 4 or 5 more exercises.
But that's the takeaway, because I think that's the stuff people want to do. People that really love to train, they want to do that hard stuff, but that other 80% is the difference between being good, being great. It has to be done consistently.
And that stuff's kind of boring. How do you make a bunch of YouTube videos that everybody's going to want to watch that basically says,
I think the YouTube might have actually helped him a little bit, because when you're not training to compete and you're just going in to train because you love to train, and he did love to train just like everybody else loves to train. If you're filming it, you're going to have just a little bit more extra hype. I'm not saying he's training harder or less, it's just, but it gives you something else to be able to train for, to be able to put in there. But, people will watch those videos or watch those crazy sets, and they gravitate towards that set of Missy doing that crazy thing, but they forget, and they kind of like ignore all the other sets that went on before there. Some of those leg sessions were a couple hours, and it's I mean, I think I saw
Missy do the Bulgarian split squats. I think she was pretty close to a shot. I can't quite remember what show it was. It was about a year and a half ago, maybe, something like that. When it was American Barbell at the
in the back room and everything.
We were in the back room, and she had her red hair going on. I forget which one that was for. But anyway, like you said, people tend to forget the whole leg workout they just did on top of doing the Bulgarian split squat drop set of death, whatever it may be. But I mean, you have a whole entire leg workout first, and then you do that to finish it.
And
off.
he was no different than anybody else. Between sets, you're talking about football, or you're talking about, pretty much anything but training. Yeah. There'd be a little bit, like whatever's going to be in there, but it was just, here's what's going on, and he was no different than anybody else from that regard. He just, when he trained. I mean, it was his profession for so long, and it's, our passion. So it's kind of how we are. And going back to those people that walk around like fired up the whole time, we could go from joking around about some stupid TV show where he's always trying to teach me about, Marvel character or comic. I don't know shit about any of that, man.
But he loved.
Oh my God, he loved it. So I would tolerate it because I don't really want to know, and I'm not going to remember any of it. But he'd be like, well, who's in it? Who's in it? So he'd be talking about that, and it's like, okay, you're up. Now we were diligent on rest periods, and we weren't timing them. But people get this misconception.
And then he could just turn it on and go.
And I think that's what people need to learn how to do. That way you do the set, you separate, and you do the set, you separate. And then all of a sudden that 2 hours doesn't seem like 2 hours, Now some of the other, what I was telling you earlier, some of the other sessions were absolutely insane because none of my gyms have ever been air conditioned. This one isn't as bad as what the other one was. It was just brutally hot, where we very well could have stroked out without a doubt. So there's,
he would tell the stories.
I mean, it was just insane what we were doing, but it was a challenge. It's like, okay, it's a challenge. We'll just kind of push through it. I'm like, you can feel the heat, when you breathe. It's like you're in a sauna, and it's crazy.
Like I think I said when we were training, like I got a little taste of that when we were at American Barbell last summer, because we were it was a temporary pole barn where there was no air conditioning. There's just a fan, and like there were some hot days where you would just walk in and you're just drenched in sweat. You could drink a gallon of water while you're working out, and like you just never even had to go to the bathroom because you just sweat the whole thing. But like you're saying, then you look back and you're like, that was quite the challenge. That was fun.
Yeah.
But then, like, I don't want to do that again, but that was fun.
Well, you find you'll see there's spray bottles around here because it still gets hot in here now. So I'll spray myself and stand in front of a fan. So it's like, ghetto air conditioning. So I found ways and started back then on how can I circulate the air, how can I blow it out, and to try to make any difference at all. But sometimes it doesn't mean shit. No. And when you're training, you don't really notice, but it's between movements. You're like, oh God, this is terrible. Like, where's
when
the spray
it's just
bottle?
so like humid in the room, like the grip is the problem. All of a sudden, it's just like you're throwing chalk left and right, and it's not working.
Yeah. Now I don't know how much, if there's any science, I don't follow shit like that. But we did find that if we put our hands in, because I'd have these coolers of ice water, we put our hands in ice water between sets. It made a big difference. The ice packs on our neck, so there were things, little hacks, but it helped, but it didn't solve the problem. It wasn't like being in air conditioning. But the good, I don't know if good, the amazing, I don't know how to explain with him because he was so freaking lean. I mean, paper thin, and 2 hours of that, and then he'd take his shirt off and he'd be like, oh, fuck. I could track a vein from his freaking head all the way to his toe. Yeah. And I just sit there. I'm like, look, man, I'm not like,
but Yeah.
I'm not like miring you or anything, but you got like veins that are going from your friggin' toe up through your leg and through there. I'm like, if you like scrape yourself on a machine in here and just like tear one of them, you're gonna bleed out. Like this is
There were so many like Instagram, like, because I would always like, there's so many like pictures and videos where I was the one that took the picture of the video. Like I wasn't usually in it, I was taking it at the time. And so there's so many, like you're saying. Like there's one I can remember him doing calf raises like after a show, and we're doing calf raises, but his quads are just like feathered, and you just see all the little muscle fibers.
Does they start doing this thing? Like,
they're flittering away, and I'm like, what the hell is like this? Is crazy.
It's hard not to be impressed.
Like,
I'm just like, the hell is that?
Yeah.
And I'm supposed to like hold it, and make the video so we can make this little Instagram post, and I'm just like, what the?
Yes.
I remember even after his heart attack, he lost a lot of weight, obviously, but he was like, "What? The legs are starting to come back a little bit," and pulled him up. I was like, that's about disrespectful.
I know. It's like, he just had a heart. They're like, look at his friend. What do you mean?
And then he would come in and he'd be like, well, yeah, and it's like, I don't know. It's like, I didn't really eat anything. He's like, for dinner, I had some Lucky Charms and a granola bar or something. Like, it was like, he would eat like nothing, like at that, like at the very end. Like, he'd done 30 years of following a strict diet. So then he just threw that out the window. It's like, I'm retired. I'm living it up.
Yeah.
And so he would like eat like next to nothing.
Yeah. I've told this story before, but you guys might not know, but when I worked with several people after powerlifting to get my weight down, I'm a fat powerlifter. I competed at 275. And now for me, when I was working my way up, it wasn't easy to get to 308. 270, 280 is where my weight would kind of fall and hold. Then I'd have to push from there. But when it came time to, let's downsize or whatever you want to call it, I didn't want to, for one. I don't want to diet. And so I went through several different diet coaches, which all helped, but so when I got with John, right, it's like, okay, I want to do this. And it's not so much about getting jacked, getting lean. It's just getting my weight down, because it's probably not a good idea to be walking around at 280 all the time. And even, after working with him, it still kind of goes up, comes down, but I know what to do now. So he's like, well, look, I'll help you out. Just, do this. And it wasn't crazy, and so forth. And so it starts to get towards the end of it, and I'm like, okay, I'm like 255. I'm like, this is a good
kind of
place.
lean.
This is a good place.
Right?
This is good. It's lean. It's vascular. It's fine. It's a good place. This is a good weight, And he's like, man, just 2 more weeks, man. 2 more weeks, and that you see that vein, and it's going to start to come through up in your shoulder. I never so people get that little vein. Like I never had that. Some big fat guys get it sometimes. I'm like, this isn't fair. Like this is like cool, man. I want that. And so I'm like, okay, I'll stick with it. So then that starts to come in. Then again, it's like, okay, are we done now? Like, because I want this rebound, right? Everybody got that the post-diet rebound. I'm like dying for this rebound. And I had refeeds and stupid shit in there. I wasn't doing a show. No, just 2 more weeks, and this keeps going on for like 6 weeks. And it's like,
so you kept doing it.
I kept doing it because he'd find other things.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you see that vein right there? You see your obliques now, just see how it's just popping right there? Then it got to the one where, 2 more weeks, I think it was maybe 3 weeks, 2 or 3 more weeks, you'll see a vein. A vein's going to come up through your abs. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like a vein in my abs? That shit ain't never happened in my life. They ain't never. Usually it's I got one ab.
That means you've gone too far?
Yeah, so now I can see, the abs and all the other kind of stuff. And then now I'm down to like 244, right? So, it's way down there. And then, he pulled the 2 more week. I don't know how he pulled the last one, but whatever it was got me down to like 240. And then I come in, I'm like, John, look, I'm done. Like, it's time to like rebound on this. I've had enough of this shit. I need to have a normal life again.
You were lean.
And then go back. And he says, and then he said, this is where he's the art and the master, right? He said, now let me point something out to you. I just want you to understand this. I've seen what you've done with everybody else, right? You start at 280, you start at 290, you go down to about 250, then boom, you gain 20 pounds within the first month. So you told me when you started you want to be about 255, 260. What do you weigh right now? I said 240. And it's like, that's why you went down this far. It's like, now I know you're going to rebound back up. You're going to be 255, but you'll come back up to that. You should be able to stay there the rest of your life as long as you be somewhat due diligent. Which I was for a while.
So he used some Jedi Master mind.
Yeah, pretty much. And I know that's, so that was his little way. You know, he had them little things that he doesn't really ever tell you, you know, on how to kind of guide. But that was something that I learned. I didn't like it. You know what I'm saying? I didn't like it.
Well, it's cool. Like when he doesn't tell you, you're like curious as to why, and then he'll tell you later on. Or
then it comes out, and it's like, okay, I got this now. Now I at least know I should be able to get down to that. I don't know what I am now, probably 264 or something like that. I can get down in that range now without that problem, and no, I don't have to go, because he helped me with other strategies past that. But there's also other times when my meathead comes in, like, well, if I put 30 pounds back on, my bench is gonna, you know, so I can do it. So I got to stop doing shit like that. But one of the other question categories that was in here was, there was the training, you know, what was John like outside of what people see in the videos? Because we all knew him on a personal level, you know, outside of the gym.
To me, like, the answer to that question is like what you saw on the video was John. Like, there really wasn't, he wasn't like, you know, some people put on a persona and for the YouTube and for the clicks of the video. Like, he didn't do any of that. He was more willing to like play the long game and just be himself consistently versus trying to be somebody he wasn't. So really what you saw in the video is what you got. So I'm trying to think of maybe what was on the video or what was not on video that you...
Well, I mean, I would come to him about like girl problems, anything outside of training and stuff too. But he approaches everything very like nice and calm and just like trying to get the story, like, why are you feeling this way, what's going on. He was very caring, really on all sides of things. But then if he felt like I was wrong about something, he's not going to say, I get what he's like, no, I think that you're probably wrong and this is why I think that, whatever. But he was very, very caring and a lot of...
He was humble,
caring, and very real, though. He was very
loyal.
Loyal, yeah, definitely.
Loyal to a fault.
Yeah.
I agree.
He
would tell me stories, and I'm not going to say any story in particular, but he would tell me stories, and I'm like, how do you feel about that? And he's like, no, I think it's a good opportunity. I'm like, I don't think that's a good opportunity. I think that you're about to get screwed, is what I think.
He always saw the good in everything.
Yeah. To a fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
He always gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yes. So it's the same, like yourself, I had a lot of conversations with, you know, on both ends, all over the spectrum. Yeah. You know, and the loyalty, like you said, it was to a fault. You know, and I'm the complete opposite. You know, I'm way on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, and I know
Prove it first.
Yeah, like, I'm not trusting anybody, right? It is just not how I'm wired. So, and I know that's wrong, right? And I know he was on that far other end of the spectrum, which is also wrong, right? So if either one of us had these issues that we were trying to work out, it's like, well, how do you feel about it? How do you, you know, so we get those polar opposites first, and then we could start to kind of move it, you know, in the middle. But, you know, he got involved in some business relationships that he shouldn't have, that, you know, I don't want to say I warned him against, but he should have known better. And I think he kind of knew the risk that was associated with it. Over time, he learned how to better tolerate, you know, those type of things. But like yourself, the reason why he was such a good trainer, even with his own clients and friend and everything else, is because he gave a fuck. I mean, on a different level. Oh man, I was trying to trying to avoid this one. But that's what made him who he was. So that's where that humbleness came out, you know, on YouTube. Because as you said, on what we saw on YouTube, that was him.
It was.
You know, humble to, I don't know if I've ever seen anybody more humble. You know, where I would try to, like, you know, mess with him and fuck with him and, you know, gym bullshit, you know, to try to get that, you know, like, tell me you're bad, you know, like, you know, tell me I'm fat, you know, and he would joke around stuff like that all the time. But, you know, and that was what you saw was what that was. And when he was bodybuilding, it was I don't want to say a different John, but when bodybuilding was that top priority, it was a different John, and there were struggles to try to find balance with those other things. Yeah. And I talked to him a lot about that. And I had some insight because I was that, right? And I was a little bit further away from it, you know, so I could give insight to say, look, I understand this has to be here, and I'm never going to tell you it shouldn't be there. Yeah. You know, but some of these other things have to be maintained. And he listened, you know, and you know, and digest it and understand, and then actually do it. Where I've had a lot of people that I've had to have some hard conversations with, and that was one of the ones I wanted to tell. You know, the first story I ever told about John after he passed was, you know, there was a time where his marriage was struggling, and it was a hard conversation, and I was hard on him, and I've had that same conversation with a lot of other people before, and nobody outside of him's ever listened.
Where he took the action and put in the effort. He took the
advice, you know, and it was, I mean, where it comes down to was John, everybody knows now John was a man of faith. Yep. Yes. You know, a lot of big faith. Yeah. He wasn't always that, right? It was always important. I don't want to say he didn't believe in Christ or anything like that, but it was not a priority. Yeah. It was for marriage. Yeah. It was for, and there was a time where there was a little battling, you know, of heads there. So it was calling him on his own bullshit, you know, and he was he was saying, I think she would be better if she could find somebody else that was like more into the church. And I'm like, you're fucking kidding me right now. You know, why don't you be that person? You know, and that was that hard conversation. I don't want to get into it, but you know, why don't you do? And he did. Right. And he exceeded any expectations I had out of that conversation. Probably what she would have expected out of that, because a lot of times people will do it just because of, you know. But no, he leaned into it, and he came just like overly passionate about that, like he did everything else. Yeah,
and like you're saying, like I like from afar, or from back, like you could see that transition where there were years ago where Sunday was a training day, right? And Sunday became a family day, a day for the church. And it wasn't like you're saying, it wasn't like he came in on Monday, started complaining about, you know, this or that. Like if anything, it was excitement about what the family did on Sunday.
Yeah. So he used to come out and train on Saturday and Sunday. And then that is when I heard him say that, you know, that day, you know, that's when it was that conversation. And that was the last Sunday that he came out, and that was good.
That's a very good thing.
That was good, right? And to me, that was the most impressive thing I saw him do before, outside of being a pro card or any of those other type of things, because that, I don't want to say it changed who he was, but it potentially saved his marriage, the relationship with the kids. I mean, look at the trajectory that could have gone, you know, in either direction from that. And it wasn't forced. You know, he did it because this is what he really wanted to do, and it was important. And that's where those conversations like that with him is, you know, he didn't always agree with things that I would say, and I didn't always agree with things that he would say, as with conversations that you guys had with him as well. It's just normal. But when he knew that he was wrong, you know, then he didn't fight it, you know, and a lot of people do. You know, their egos get in the way, and his humbleness, I think this is what this comes down to. I've never thought this through to this extent, but I think his humbleness is what enabled him to be able to say, maybe I should really like think about this and see, you know, what it is. And it did, you know, it pivoted. And actually after that is when, oddly enough, the bodybuilding started to come more into line. The pro card soon followed. His business started to take off. You know, so some of these questions were in here, like about that balance. You know, and I don't want to say that that was like a defining moment or anything like that, but I think at that point in time, you know, anybody that trains hard or puts training as a top priority is going to struggle with balance. And that's because they're trying to look at it being a scale. You know, like there's 4 different odds, and you got to put these weights on the scale, and it's got to balance all out. It doesn't work that way. It all has to be one. You know, the bodybuilding has to be part of the family. The family has to be part of body. It has to all integrate together. You know, so the wife's part of the process. The kids are part of the process. They're flying to the shows. He's spending the money to take them to the shows. It's, you see the transition. You know,
they were coming to the gym a little too.
So the balance was bringing everything in
Yeah.
You know, sharing that world, not saying this is my world, this is what I do, this is my space, you know, and that's what worked for him. I'm not saying that's not, you know, that's not going to work for everybody else, but finding that balance.
Yeah.
So, yes.
One thing that I remember him always talking about was like for his clients or just pointers when it came to trying to find some sort of balance when you're a high level competitor like that. Like, of course, communication is key there, but it's like, you know, talking to them, all right, the last 4 weeks here before my show, I'm just going to be out of it. I want you to understand it. However I'm acting, it's not because of you. And then it's like, well, when this show's over, I'm going to pamper you. We're going to whatever.
Yeah,
we're going to go on vacation. Like it's, you know, you got to put forth that effort when your show or when that's over. You got to then put forth the effort to almost make up for
and follow through.
Yeah.
Now you see why I got so pissed when he won his pro card and he started this Vancouver shit. Right. Yeah. So this. So that was the point where what's Mary say about this? Well, she's bought in. Like no. I need to talk to her. Like what's going on here? You know. And so that was kind of because there was history there. You see, and I'm like, oh. So now you see why I was. I was more than mad. I was pissed.
Yeah.
When you're bodybuilding, you're powerlifting, or whatever sport it may be, I'm not married or have kids or anything, but when you're doing that single and you're just focused on yourself and you can just be completely selfish on like what you have to do, it's very different from when you have a family or a wife and kids, because it's not about you anymore. You got to, like you said, find the balance of figuring that out. And when you start putting the bodybuilding over, or as your wife, kids, or God, whatever, then other things are going to suffer a little bit. So I think that was probably a great thing that you had that talk with him.
Yeah, and I mean, and more things were coming into his life, right? I mean, it is different being a bodybuilder when you're working for the bank.
Yeah.
You know, and when he first started coming out, he's still working for the bank. So he was not the entrepreneur. Yeah. Now you throw that in there. You know, now you got another edge of the scale that needs to be balanced out. Yeah. And so all these other things started. Then the kids, he had young ones when I met. They were very young. Yeah. You know, very young. Well, they start growing up, right? Yeah. So they require more time. You know, they always require time, but they require more time the more grown up they become. Yeah. So then that's another thing that has to be kind of balanced out in the whole thing. And so he had all those things that were important to him, but it can start to pull, you know, away from that. To shift topics drastically, did he ever tell you guys the Wendy story?
You know what? I've seen this comment. Somebody said that. Tell the Wendy story. I haven't heard the Wendy story.
Feel like
I don't think.
How about the Baconator story?
I feel like I kind of remember but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I feel like it's
he was proud of this.
He may have had an accident, you know.
Oh yes.
So so I think I know.
He we're at our old place, the Wendy story. At our old place, there was not a bathroom. Right, the gym was separate from the office, so you had to kind of go in there.
we drove past it on the way, by the railroad tracks,
So if he got there first and nobody was there, there's nothing going on. I do believe, and I could be wrong, but I do believe it was one of the times that Ken Jackson came out. Yeah. And for whatever reason, John decided he was going to have a Baconator.
Pre-workout?
It was either pre-workout or whatever it was going to be, but he couldn't find the bathroom, so he went somewhere, and he blew the bathroom apart. I mean, there was, and he was so proud of this. There were shit particles on the wall, on the floor, on the wall behind. He couldn't figure out how. It got everywhere. Yeah. You know, and I all I could guess, or because I do believe Ken was part of this conversation, is we were trying to figure it out, like how, because we're like how the hell do you get shit, you know, on the partition between soles? And what we figured was, because he had a really hard time digesting things.
Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, the man didn't have a large intestine.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he shit like 20 times a day. Yeah. I mean, it was just. Yeah. I couldn't imagine living like that, but it was normal. I think he went to pull his pants down and it just blew out before he could even get to the
so
seat,
he's just at the right angle.
But, he was, so it became the Baconator story, man. So then shortly after that, I'm like, well, I need to try. I've never had a Baconator in my life. I need to try it. I didn't have the same experience, but it was, it led to the same outcome, where it was just, but you gotta imagine John. I mean, he was proud of this.
That's
you know what I'm
so
saying?
good.
He was like, man, listen to this. You know, and he's telling this story, and it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. It's like, yeah, it was everywhere, man. It was just unbelievable.
He would like, so you know, my thing was I was always like early or I'm on time, and for whatever reason, doesn't bother me. He was always like 5-10 minutes late.
Yeah.
We're training at 10. He's always there at 10:10. I could care less, but like for me, I had to be on time, or I always want to be early. That's just, I don't know, my mindset or whatever. But there were, like you're saying, 9 out of 10 times or something, he could come in and he's just, it wasn't, hey, how's it going? He's just speed walking straight for the bathroom because he's got to go. Because you know, he doesn't have a large intestine, and so if like you ate something that maybe would just make my stomach gargle or something, it was like right out the exit.
Yeah, I mean, when we came here, it made it easier because the bathroom was right there. I mean, the other was like way out there, so I always knew I had to keep that door open to the office because it could be a couple times in one session.
Yeah, we could be, like you're saying, you could be training, and he's like, I'll be right, gotta go.
Yeah.
And it was just, I'm going to the back, like you just.
I did want to hit this one thing from the last question of how he is off camera. I think one thing that no one really got to see is how excited he was about certain videos. So I remember there was, I was telling this earlier, there was this one video, and I think people would probably know what it is, but it was a leg day video with Sonny, came in, and Teresa. And he was like, there is, I'm going to say the secret to getting big legs, and then I'm going to step in front of the fan so you can't hear me.
That's a good one.
He was so excited to do that video, to do that part. And it's like, to someone that might just be like, yeah, we're going to do this, and be like, okay. But he was like so excited. He's like, the followers are going to love this and that. So I was like, man, that's like, he really, it's not like he's just doing it for a show. He like really loved it.
No, he had the humor of a child.
Yeah,
like the Ultimate Warrior
That's
thing.
exactly what I was thinking.
He was like, I got this thing, and I'm going to put the mask on. I'm going to like whack somebody with a chair. And I'm like, John, that's stupid, man.
But
like, no, this is the greatest thing. Wait till you see me do it, you know? And it's like, oh my God.
But he put that mask on and he looked like him.
I know.
Like,
man.
Wait a second.
Yeah. I mean, he would, like you said, he would plan this all out. And it's like the fan thing. I remember that. He was, and there was something all the time, you know? It's just his personality was, he had that side, which was just quirky.
Yeah.
You know,
how about, okay, so now we're talking about quirky, John. How about like you could laugh at the shoes he would wear? How about when he had that phase where he's wearing the tank tops over the
shirt? Yeah. And the more you made fun of it, the more he would do it.
Oh,
yeah. You know, it's like, no, this is great. This is like Rocky. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, put on the Rocky montage, you know, for training. They're like, well, like what one? You know, and he knew Rocky. You know, the Drago one, you know, the one where Drago's running around the thing. We need that on, you know. It's just it's all those kind of things would just always kind of like come up, and you're just the innocence almost, right?
Yes,
like the innocence of a child and that aspect, which was great because you don't see that. You know, I don't think I've seen that anymore.
And his shoes, like people would, like on the YouTube videos, the more recent one, or maybe it was Instagram, I don't know, both. They'd be like, I don't know, he had like the new Air Force Ones or something. Everybody'd be like, oh man, where'd you get those shoes? I love that color scheme. He'd be like, I don't know. He's like, I went in and asked the kid, what are some cool shoes?
I know. He didn't know.
He didn't have a cool.
Yeah, exactly.
Never had a cool.
And then they looked new for like a week. You know, then they're like all worn out, you know, but I'd make fun of him for his shoes too, because people would ask him stuff like that.
He would wear them until like they busted out from like the calf training. And then it was like, oh, I got to find some new shoes. And then it would be like 2 weeks later, John, I thought we were getting new shoes. Like you can see his big toe like hanging out the shoe practically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think he was buying some of them just for YouTube, you know, to be able to create the conversations and stuff like that. This one here, I think we already kind of touched on, but what do you think John was most proud of? Now, we'll just take Mary and the kids aside.
Yeah, I was going to say the kids right away. Oh, God. It has to be the pro card, right?
I'm going to say it's the football team.
Well,
yeah, definitely. Football.
I mean, towards the end, I think he was more excited about those kids winning that championship than him winning a pro card.
Yeah,
like I can picture that video of him jumping when they won the championship.
Yes.
Jumping in the air.
You see it I mean, he had his phone out. Man, he was.
Yeah, I mean, he was happy that he won the pro card, but he wasn't ecstatic about it. It's like, this is something I've worked so hard for. I mean, you thought that he would have been like, oh yeah, like the greatest thing in the world, but it was not even. I think it was just like, finally, I got what I've worked so hard for. I don't want to say he wasn't.
It was almost
unappreciative.
Like a different type of happiness, almost.
Yeah,
and the football thing as well. Like he could do that with his family, and his kids were involved, so he was proud of them. Yeah, you know what I wish is he could have seen them play the next year, because Alexander got big. His voice is getting deep, but then Jonathan turned into a superstar.
Yeah.
Like over a year.
He got the confidence, and all of a sudden he's like the starting safety linebacker. Like it was a world of difference as far as his football performance.
Because the year before it was like he would do some things, like, man, that was pretty good. But then the next year it was like, oh, where's this kid gonna go to college? He's good now, real good. But I definitely would say the football stuff for sure.
One of these, I'm just kind of flipping through some of these here. One of them is what was his business strategy, and I don't want to go deep into that, but his business strategy was just he obviously wanted to help people. I mean, that's why the YouTube channel and all that other kind of stuff kind of turned into what it was, and it became a passion for him about it because it was reaching more people, being able to help more people. Yeah. So that was kind of all that. But, towards the end, it was more, how can I do, because business is business. There's a lot of administrative stuff that goes along with it. It's how can I get rid of like a lot of this stuff so I can just do more of this football thing.
Football and it was like football, the community. It was more about like that. Yeah.
So what he was trying to do towards the end was to create almost an exit strategy. So that all he wanted to do was the YouTube channels to work with the favorite clients, like a handful of favorite clients, and football. Yeah, that was it.
He was like on the transition.
He was getting there. Everything was moving there. all the side hustles.
I think that's
and all
what
that
made his passing very hard, because I think that we knew that a little bit, that he was trying to just transition.
Yeah.
Which is like, man, it sucks that it happened right now.
Yeah, it was close. It was close, man. It might have been a few years out. But it was John too, so there could have been a pivot where, hey, there's this opportunity I want to, but I don't know though, man, because he was really pretty set on the football thing and, all that and, trying to map everything out, for that.
With my conversations with him, it was football was always the first love, the first, like it was like you didn't, a lot of people didn't realize that, but that was always the goal, man. He when he was a kid, it transitioned because it became a reality. It transitioned to like, him seeing the superheroes and whatever the magazine was when he was 11. But he wanted to go pro playing football, and like this was his way to basically experience that, was the coach.
Mm-hmm. All right, so flip through here. What was John's greatest strength as a coach? I think caring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't feel like
even as a person, I think that like every person, it always seemed like everybody who met him was like blown away, how like we kind of talked about how humble, how nice, and it was like he made you feel like you were his best friend after the first 4-minute conversation you had with him.
Yeah, he did that with everybody too.
Yeah.
Even if it was during, like, there's a time to like approach someone at the gym. I think like if they're training in the middle of something, I would like just leave them alone. But people would come up to him during training all the time, and he wouldn't act any different. He'd be very nice to everybody. It wasn't like, wait till I'm done with this set or anything, which maybe they should have, but he didn't. He was just very nice and polite and respectful to everybody all the time.
Like that was how I first met him. It was where I'm on the hack squat, and I don't know, I'm doing something ridiculous like 10 sets of 10 or something. So I think I probably was there too long. So he finally came over. He came over and just asked to work in with me. And in my head, the way I remembered, it was like we had like a 30-minute conversation about training and all this, and like I didn't know who he was, but I was always a fan of bodybuilding, and I was like blown away. I was like, this is the nicest guy ever. And like, kind of how you would stare at you, like, he's not a dick like you would have thought some people would be like. And just, I had the same experience that everybody else would have had with him. Yeah. And that would have been whatever, 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah. How did you first meet John?
He's been around since I was very little. I call him Uncle John. He's not my blood uncle, right? But he's one of those guys that like.
Well, he knew your dad.
Your whole family history.
So basically, he knew my dad before I was alive, I believe. Like
they have fun stories.
There's
some
man.
shit we're not going to talk about. We're not talking about that. But John had a wild time.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of that was with your dad.
Yeah.
So we'll just leave that with what it is.
I thought your dad was the one that got him to Westside. Is the way I remember the story.
Maybe.
I believe that's how it went. Yeah, but so I just remember I would go over to, my dad would bring me to John and Aunt Mary's house before they moved to this one, obviously. And I was real young, but he'd be like, "You guys want a popsicle?" And I was like, "Oh man, I want to look like this guy." I don't want no popsicle. Take me to the gym or whatever. But so that's kind of how it started. And then as I got older, oh man, I mean, I was really, really, really young then. But as I got older, I was like, "Dad, I really want to train with John or whatever." And he's like, we'll see, whatever. So then finally talked to him, and he's like, "Yeah, bring him out." And he come out to Lifetime. That was the first time I went out there. And I just remember being like, man, this guy is so, like, all these people were like coming up to him and talking to him, and he's like taking time out of his day just for me. And then after that, I was like, man, this is really fun. So it motivated me. But then it wasn't until I went, like I said, the 2016 Arnold Classic with my dad, watched him do that, and I was like, no, this is what I want to do. Cause just the when he got up there, the way that he looked, I didn't know what it took to look like that, obviously, but I just remember the whole place just like went silent, then it went crazy. And by the way, little side note, so my show in 5 weeks is dedicated to him and Aunt Mary and the kids and stuff, but the routine is going to be very cool. It's a very cool. I know you're going. If you'd like to go, you're going to love it. Aunt Mary's going to go. The boys are going to go. I'm very excited because it's dedicated to him. The routine is very thought through, so I'm very excited to like show that I've been working on it for like a few months now. So, but it's going to be very cool. It's going to be super cool. But that's kind of how it started for me. Then I was blessed enough for him to coach me for the last show that I did at the Mr. Ohio. We won our classes. I got second in the overall, but it was just very cool to finally have him coach me and take me on. And now I'm with his partner, Chris Edmonds.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't want to bring it up from the beginning unless you were going to share that. John was really good friends with your dad. And basically saw you born in a way. So he's known you your entire life. So you grew, like you said, he's Uncle John, from that. So you went from, admiring him as, whoever he was to actually training with him, and so that's a whole different perspective. We don't even know, you know what I'm saying? So hell, he may have babysat you for all that we know. I probably shouldn't share stories that I know about your dad and John, some of the crazy.
It's pretty wild.
But, I mean, he was wild, man. I mean, he had his time where, before the wife and the kids were, he was crazy as hell, man. They did some fucked up shit. But So hopefully he helped you avoid not doing those things and doing that kind of stuff.
It's very fun to listen to, like some of the things back then. I'm like, no way, that was you guys. Like, you know what I mean? Because they're so like loving and caring. My dad as well. My dad's very loving and caring towards me and everything, but I got to see a little bit of my dad's crazy side. I won't say too much. I won't But a little bit, when I was younger, I remember there was this time at the zoo. He won't get mad at me for saying this, but it was really fun. My dad, we were at the zoo and this guy like flipped us off or something. When I'm with my family at the time, and my dad just like jumped out of the car and ripped their door open. And I was like, oh my gosh. But I talked to a couple of his high school buddies and they're like, that's how he was all the time. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. But with him and Uncle John as well. So it was, anyway, it was fun stories to listen to.
So are there any questions that people are popping through?
Have we been talking for a long time?
I don't know. I haven't paid attention.
About 2 hours.
No.
Oh, wow. Time flies, huh?
If there's any that pop up, we'll take a couple of those, and then I got the final question I'll put out.
And then Bret's going to close with a song, right?
I don't know about that.
Oh, okay.
That's not...
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
Not my hidden talent.
Nothing that's...
We didn't cover.
It's mostly just like, thanks for everything you do.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
So I'm trying to find...
No, that's fine. That's cool, because we covered quite a bit. The one question that kind of resonated, kept coming through there is, I don't know how to kind of word it. Like, is what is the lasting impression that he's made on all of us? Like, how are we This is why I put it.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're like me, I think there's certain people that have passed I think of every day. I mean, it's kind of hard for me not. I mean, this picture's hanging on the wall.
Like, honest, like, just on that subject, like, I've been surprised how much I keep thinking about him every day. Like, people, you know, like, it's like a saying, like, I think about him every day. But I'm like, why can I not stop thinking about him? Like, I've been, like, I don't know, shocked or surprised, because, to be honest, I have a tiny little circle of friends. And, like, it was him, another best friend, and, like, I spent so much time with him the last few years that all of a sudden he's gone, and it's just like there's like this, you know, there's this void or emptiness or whatever, and it's just like every day, whether I'm driving to the gym or not, or completely not even going to the gym, I've just been blown away how much I keep thinking about him, and I don't know.
I think one thing I've learned, and he tried to warn me about, is the fitness industry inside of the industry can get pretty dark and drama filled and stuff. And there's a lot of times where I want to react a certain way, and like probably in an irrational, not appropriate way, that I just want to handle something. And there's a lot of times that I think he was very good at teaching me not to do that, to ignore certain things, or to, because there was times I was like, did you see a video that was made about you? He's like, dude, I don't look at that stuff, because what's that going to do for me? I'm not going to look at that, and it's probably not completely true anyway, what's going on. So just to be honestly a good, genuine person, be real, however you are, just be real and be who you are, is a big takeaway. But there's a lot of times, like I said, where I get frustrated about something, but it just reminds me of what you used to tell me about certain things. I don't react in a way that maybe I would have if I never knew him.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's easy to
kind of answer your question. It's almost like a reaffirmation, because we had so many, like, the way we viewed life, we had so many things in common in that way, and it was almost like the takeaway is just like a reaffirmation of the way I viewed things, because after the heart attack, and we would have had a conversation before too, but I had multiple conversations with him just about how precious time is. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but my view on time is time is the ultimate luxury. You can't buy time.
And what you do with your time is very important as well. Yeah, you can waste a lot of it.
Yeah, there's and it's just my view, and there's fancy cars and fancy houses, fancy watches, but all that costs money. And I'm not rich, but I completely stopped working 4 years ago because I had enough money. I just need enough money so I can live and be happy. And I stopped working because work was nothing but stress. And it wasn't something I would do for free, in essence. Why would I keep working? So as soon as I could stop working, I want to be able to spend more time with my family and friends. And I think about my parents. My parents are still around. They're from Illinois. So when I'm working, I was lucky to see them for 5 or 7 days every year. And so now I stopped working and I can see them. I can go back, last summer, I go back and I spent 2 weeks with them. They're not getting any younger. They're in their 70s. And you start thinking, well, how much more time am I going to get with them? And so when I think of John, I stopped working, and it's just a reaffirmation of once I stopped working, that's when I was able to spend 2-3 hours, 5 days a week with him for 3 years training every day. And when you step back and think about that, that's for an average person, that's probably almost a lifetime with your best friend, right? The average person is
it's more.
Probably. You're lucky if every other weekend you go to a movie with your buddy or something. So for me, it's just we would talk about how precious time is, and he, because his family history, he knew, and so to me, my kind of biggest takeaway is that it just reaffirmed that that's my view, that like the most important thing is that time and like the freedom that comes with. I stopped working. I've had opportunities to make more, but what's the once I have like that's just my view. Once you have enough, I have enough, and now I can spend that time with my family and my friends like John. And you never get that time back.
No.
Today is like I don't even know, May whatever the heck it is. There will never be another May whatever 2022. And so it's just that view of time and how precious those moments are.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure if that even answers.
It does, because
but it's just
it sounds like you had many of the same conversations with him that I had, after the heart attack, which, is, I don't want, we don't want to get in, but he I don't want to say he knew, right?
He was aware.
He knew the possibility.
Yeah.
And,
probably.
And he didn't want to, but I don't want to say was okay with it, but I do, because we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about, as you're saying, you referenced it perfectly, the time, and how that relates to it. And like yourself, it's like a very, very small circle, it's very small, and you lose somebody out of that circle. It's a big void, so those conversations that I had with him over the 6 months or so before he passed were, it kind of helped a little bit, after he passed, because he knew the possibility, it wasn't like this just whacked him out of nowhere. And he did the best he could to set everything up, for that. And so it didn't really help,
it never does, but
it eased it a little, a little bit from that, but those conversations about, with him, that's where the football, is where like, I want this other stuff fun. I want it out of my life, but I'm not in a position I can really do it yet, but it's getting there, but I want it out of my life so I can just do, those type of things, which leaves that lasting impression. For me, that leaves that lasting impression of what's really important. And it falls back to, as you just said, it's time, that's, you can earn enough money to buy that car to be able to do that, but you can't buy the 4 hours that just went by. It's gone. And the next 4 they're not guaranteed.
You can give up time to make money, but you can never buy back your time.
Yes. And it's not guaranteed, and I've had enough close people to me to know that that's not guaranteed. Now we do the best to live the best life that we can, as I talked earlier about longevity and all that other kind of stuff. There's also this mental longevity we need to all be aware of. Do you want to sacrifice the time, that's not really guaranteed for something later down the line that isn't guaranteed either? So it's just that. So there's that part. Then there's the other part of, as I said before, he was the exact opposite, of certain things. So if I get into a business issue or something that I'm frustrated about, I'll stop and I'll think, how would John think about it?
Yes.
And it's the complete opposite. And now I have a frame of reference for that, which is, it's a blessing that he gave me that, because I never had that before. I could play both sides, and I could say, okay, here's the opposite of what I'm thinking. But now I have context, to that. Like, what is that? And that is that I'll take that with me until I die, so, and like others that have passed, there'll never be a day where I won't think of him. That's not bad. It's a good thing, right? Because what he left on me and what he's left on you guys is a gift, so for us, he was a blessing in our life. And I hope other people have people like that in their circle, if it's big or small, because, I think we all need them, because it gives that different perspective. And, we all get caught up in our own heads and all this other kind of stuff and all that. But if you can have people that have those different perspectives, it plays into it all. Any other closing thoughts that you guys have? We'll just shut it down right here. And, thank you guys for listening.
Thanks for having me.
Like I said, this was one of the podcasts that I wanted to do. And a little earlier, right? But I had a sponsor step up. That
I got
kind of helps.
Can we
Yes.
plug plug John?
Of
right?
course.
Right. So if anybody doesn't know, right, his website is still up. What is it?
Yes.
MountainDogDiet.com.
MountainDogDiet.com. His programs are still up.
Yeah, where you can, if you buy a program from his website, right, that's going directly to Mary, the boys. Mm-hmm. His YouTube's still up. That doesn't cost you anything if you want to rewatch some old videos for good, an inspiration on a workout. Yeah. If you want to buy, I believe the T-shirt links are still there in his YouTube page. So there's,
and we'll have links to all this in the description for the YouTube and for the so forth. But of course, the program's still, they're up. The member site's still up. It's still being run. Somebody did ask, and I'll put this out. Who's running that, right? So the YouTube is Noah, right? And that money's going, to Mary and. Noah is the person that started the thing with him. So there's nobody who's close to John has any issue with Noah doing that, and he's repurposing, a lot of the stuff that's in there. I think he has some old footage that he'll put out every now and again. And when he thinks about, what to do with the channel, he's not doing this in a vacuum. He's doing it with, he's speaking to you guys, speaking to me, speaking to Mary. I mean, we're all, close. It's not as close as what we should be, but I speak to Mary often about different business things. She's, kind of taking the reins on Mountain Dog, and where that will go in the future is it's 100% on her.
That's what I've always said.
Yes, and we are all, at least I know we are all 100% in favor of whatever she wants to do is going to be done. And nobody else is going to make any decisions on that.
There's no wrong answer. Whatever
exactly.
Yes.
Now any forcing of any, we won't. But that's all his assets, all his business assets are going to his family. I want that to be known. I'm glad you brought that up. I want that to be known. It's, if somebody does try to monetize, on his name. And I've seen some things that I thought were a little funky, right? And my first call was to Mary about that. And trust me, if it is funky and if it is fucked up, it will stop, right? Because there's too many people that will put an end to that really quick. And trust me, you don't want to be the company that's going to do this, because with the support and love that so many people have had for him, they'll never have a business again.
That's the difference of influencers or whatever you want to call that. Just put a show on kind of, but when you have someone that's genuine and real, you have true loyal fans, which is exactly what he has. So if something like that, like you said, were to happen, then it would be shut down real fast.
Real quick. So we'll shut it down with that. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for coming out.
For
we need to train again for sure.
Absolutely.